Signals in the Silence. A dark romance novel. Prologue. The Last Confession. Sloan. The phone felt heavier than it should have. 200 grams of glass and metal and silicon. I'd looked up the specs once, back when I still cared about things like product reviews and warranty coverage. Back when I had a life that included mundane concerns like which carrier had the best data plan. Now it just felt like evidence. A liability, a betrayal waiting to happen. I stood at the edge of Commercial Wharf, where the harbor met the city in a jumble of rotting pilings and industrial detritus. 2:17 in the morning, and Boston was as close to silent as it ever got. The water lapped against the pier with a rhythm that should have been soothing but just sounded hungry. Waiting. The phone's screen glowed in my palm, the brightness turned down to almost nothing. Even that felt too visible. 18 months of running had taught me that light was risk, sound was danger, and anything digital was a ticking time bomb. I should have thrown it away months ago. But I hadn't. Because buried in its memory were the only remnants of who I used to be, photos I couldn't bear to look at but couldn't delete, contacts for people who thought I was dead, text threads that ended mid-conversation, mid-life, mid-sentence sometimes, like I'd simply ceased to exist between one message and the next. And the voice memos. God, the voice memos. I'd started recording them in the first week of witness protection, when the loneliness had become a physical thing, a weight pressing on my chest that made it hard to breathe. The federal marshals had been clear. No contact with anyone from my previous life. No social media. No email. No phone calls. I was Sloan Graves now, not Sloan Morrison. New name, new history, new person. Except I wasn't a new person. I was just the old person with all her connections severed, floating in a void of government-mandated isolation. So I'd started talking to myself. Just little things at first. Observations about the safe house in Providence, complaints about the food, dry commentary on the marshal who couldn't remember my new name half the time. But then the recordings had gotten longer. Deeper. I'd started confessing things I'd never told anyone. Fears and regrets, and the kind of raw, ugly thoughts you only admit in the dark. I told the phone about the nightmares. About waking up convinced that Marcus Layton, the man whose financial empire I'd helped destroy, had found me. About the paranoia that made me check locks 17 times before bed. About the crushing guilt of knowing my testimony had saved me but destroyed people who'd trusted me, colleagues who'd had no idea what Layton was doing, whose careers I'd incinerated anyway. I told it about the loneliness, about going days without speaking to anyone, about forgetting what my own voice sounded like. I told its secrets I'd die before saying out loud to an actual person. And now I had to destroy it. The safe house had been compromised 4 days ago. I didn't know how. Maybe someone had recognized me at the grocery store. Maybe the marshals had fucked up. Maybe Layton's people had just gotten lucky. It didn't matter. What mattered was the knock on the door at 3 in the morning. The marshal's urgent voice telling me we had to move now. The sound of footsteps in the hallway that were too heavy, too confident, too wrong. I'd gone out the bathroom window and hadn't stopped running. The marshals had protocols for this. Emergency contacts, backup safe houses, contingency plans. But I'd watched enough true crime documentaries to know how this ended. The witness who trusted the system too much. The person who believed they were safe right up until the moment they weren't. So I'd run, really run. No contact with the marshals, no emergency number, no digital breadcrumbs. I'd taken the cash I'd been hoarding for exactly this scenario, $3,000 in small bills, hidden in a tampon box because men never looked there, and I'd disappeared. Except you can't really disappear anymore. Not completely. Not when cameras are everywhere. When facial recognition software can spot you in a crowd. When your phone is a tracking device you carry willingly in your pocket. Which brought me back to the pier, to the phone, to the decision I'd been avoiding for the last 72 hours. I pulled up the voice memo app one last time. 63 recordings, ranging from 30 seconds to 47 minutes. A diary of isolation, an archive of loneliness. I should delete them before throwing the phone away. Anyone with the right equipment could retrieve deleted files, but it was still safer than leaving them intact. But I couldn't make myself do it. Some stupid, self-destructive part of me wanted them to exist, wanted proof that I'd been real, that I'd felt things, that I'd existed as more than just a legal instrument, a witness number, a redacted name in court documents. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of salt and diesel and rotting fish. My fingers were going numb. I needed to decide. One more, I thought. One more recording, and then I'll throw it in. I hit the record button. It's me again, obviously. Who else would it be? My voice sounded hollow in my own ears, flattened by exhaustion and resignation. It's November 7th. 2:17 a.m. I'm at Commercial Wharf in Boston, and I'm about to throw this phone in the harbor, so this is probably the last one of these. The last confession. I paused, watching my breath mist in the cold air. I don't know why I'm doing this. It's not like anyone's ever going to hear it. That's the whole point, right? Talking to no one. Confessing to the void. Maybe that's easier than actually letting someone know you. The water moved below me, dark and infinite. I'm tired, I continued, and hearing myself say it out loud made it more true, more real. Not just physically, though God knows I am. I can't remember the last time I slept more than 3 hours. But I'm tired of being afraid. Tired of jumping at shadows. Tired of living like this. No name, no friends, no fucking future. My throat tightened. I forced myself to keep talking. I used to think the worst thing that could happen was being alone, but I was wrong. The worst thing is being alone and knowing it's safer that way. Knowing that anyone who gets close to you becomes a target, a liability, a potential casualty. The worst thing is wanting connection so badly it physically hurts, and knowing that the moment you reach for it, you're signing someone else's death warrant. I laughed, and it came out bitter. Marcus Layton taught me that. Before I testified, when I still thought I could have both, the truth and the people I loved. My best friend Maya cut contact 2 days after my face hit the news. My sister changed her number. My mom told the marshals I'd made my choice, and she'd made hers. And they were right to do it. I was poison. I still am. The phone screen dimmed. I tapped it to keep the recording going. The fucked up thing is, I'd do it again. Testify, I mean, because Layton was stealing from people who couldn't afford to lose anything, and someone had to stop him. But I wish. My voice cracked. I wish the cost hadn't been everything. I wish there was something left of me besides fear and fake names and these goddamn recordings. I closed my eyes. If anyone ever hears this, which they won't, because it's about to be at the bottom of Boston Harbor, but if they somehow did, I just want them to know I was real. Sloan Morrison was real. Before I became Sloan Graves, before I became a witness number, before I became nobody, I was real. I had friends. I laughed at stupid jokes. I cried at sad movies. I was a person. The words were coming faster now, tumbling out like I'd opened a valve I couldn't close. And I'm so fucking lonely I can barely stand it. I want someone to know my real name. I want someone to see me. Really see me. Not the fake identity or the witness or the runner. I want someone to hear these recordings and understand why I made them. I stopped, took a breath. I want to stop running. I want to stop being afraid. I want to exist again. Silence. Just the water and the wind and my ragged breathing. But that's not going to happen. So instead, I'm going to throw this phone in the harbor, and then I'm going to figure out how to disappear so completely that even I can't find myself. And maybe that's for the best. Maybe some people aren't meant to be known. I hit stop. The recording saved automatically. 64 memos now. A complete archive of my unraveling. I looked at the delete button, looked at the harbor, looked back at the phone. Delete them, whispered the practical part of my brain. Don't leave evidence. But the lonely part, the part that had been speaking into the void for 18 months, couldn't do it. Let them exist, that part said. Let someone know you were here, even if they never know your name. I was so tired of being practical. I pulled my arm back and threw the phone as hard as I could. It arced through the darkness, screen still glowing, and hit the water with a sound like a period at the end of a sentence. Gone. I stood there for a long moment, watching the spot where it had disappeared, feeling something vast and empty open up in my chest. That phone had been my last connection to who I used to be, and now it was sinking to the bottom of the harbor, taking Sloane Morrison with it. Only Sloane Graves remained, and she was no one, nothing, a ghost in a city full of people who would never know her name. I turned and walked away from the pier, pulling my hood up against the wind, and tried not to think about the fact that I'd just thrown away the only evidence I'd ever existed. Kieran. The notification pinged at 4:17 a.m., pulling me out of code review and into the surveillance feed. Harbor sweep complete. 3 items retrieved. I toggled to the live camera feed from the drone. Marco, one of Vincent's more reliable soldiers, was pulling a net onto the dock, water streaming off black mesh. The usual detritus of criminal enterprise disposal, a gun, serial numbers filed off, naturally, a laptop, smashed hard drive amateur work, and I zoomed in. A phone. Relatively new model, waterproof rating good but not perfect, probably 4 to 6 hours in the water based on the depth reading. Recoverable, if you knew what you were doing. I knew what I was doing. Bring everything to the lab, I said into the comm. Phone first. You got it, boss. Not boss. That was Vincent. I was just the tech guy, the digital janitor cleaning up after the family's messier ventures. But the soldiers had started calling me boss anyway. Some combination of respect and fear. I'd built the security systems that kept them alive. I'd developed the encryption that kept them out of federal prison. I'd turned the Hale family from old-school muscle into a 21st century operation. So, boss. Fine. I returned to the code review while I waited, but my attention kept drifting back to that phone. There was something about the way it had been lying in the net, screen down, like it was hiding, like it had secrets. Everything had secrets. That was the first thing you learned in this business. The second thing was that secrets were currency, and I was the bank. Marco arrived 40 minutes later, dropping the sealed evidence bags on my workstation. Gun, laptop, phone, a good night's haul. Anything else? I asked, already reaching for the phone. Quiet night. Vincent's got a meeting at 8 with the Calabrese people. Wants you there. I'll be there. Marco hesitated. You ever sleep, Kieran? Occasionally. I was already connecting the phone to my recovery rig, specialized hardware that could interface with water-damaged devices. Close the door on your way out. He left. I dimmed the lights and put on my headphones. Not because I needed them for the work, but because the isolation helped me focus. The lab was my sanctuary, all clean lines and controlled temperature, and absolutely no human complications. Just me and the machines and the secrets people thought they'd destroyed. The phone powered on after 20 minutes of careful work. Water damage to the charging port, some corrosion on the internal connectors, but the memory was intact. Good waterproofing on this model. Expensive choice for someone who was throwing it away. Interesting. I bypassed the lock screen, 4-digit PIN, embarrassingly easy, and started the data extraction. Texts, emails, photos, browsing history, apps. Everything copied to my secure server for analysis. And voice memos. 64 of them. I almost skipped them. Audio files were time-consuming, usually boring. People left voice reminders about grocery lists, recorded their kids' first words, dictated notes they'd never transcribe. But something made me click on the first one. Testing. Is this thing on? God, I feel like an idiot talking to myself. A woman's voice. Mid to late 20s, I'd guess. East Coast accent, probably Massachusetts. Nervous laugh. Self-deprecating tone. I should have stopped there. Should have moved on to the texts, the emails, the actually useful data. But I didn't. I clicked the second memo. Okay, so day 3 in the world's most depressing safe house. The wallpaper is literally peeling off the walls, and I'm pretty sure something died in the heating vent. Also, Marshall Peterson still can't remember that I'm Sloane Graves now, not Sloane Morrison. He called me Morrison 3 times today. Very reassuring for someone who's supposed to be protecting my identity. Safe house, false identity, a witness then, in protection, running from something. I should have stopped. I clicked the third memo. I had the nightmare again, the one where Marcus Layton finds me, where he's standing in my kitchen with that smile he used to have during board meetings, the one that meant someone was about to get fired. Except in the dream he's not firing anyone, he's just standing there, waiting. And I can't move, I can't scream, I just have to stand there and watch him watch me. Marcus Layton, financial crimes, federal prosecution, witness testimony that had brought down his entire operation, 2 years ago, maybe 3. I remembered Vincent mentioning it. Layton had ties to some of the Boston families, money laundering through his investment firm. Which meant this woman had testified against connected people. Which meant she was in real danger. I leaned back in my chair, phone screen glowing in the darkness, and tried to convince myself to stop listening. This was invasion of privacy, voyeurism. Wrong by any reasonable ethical standard. But reasonable ethics had never been my strong suit. I clicked the 4th memo, then the 5th, then the 10th. By the 20th, I knew she took her coffee black because cream was a luxury in the safe house budget. I knew she'd had a cat named Hemingway who died while she was in protection, and she'd never gotten to say goodbye. I knew she was afraid of the dark but slept with the lights off anyway because light meant visibility, and visibility meant risk. By the 40th, I knew she bit her nails when she was anxious, that she'd been a data analyst before everything fell apart, that her favorite movie was Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind because it understood that sometimes memory was a curse. By the 60th, I knew she was alone in ways I recognized, in ways that echoed my own isolation, my own careful distance from genuine human connection. And by the 64th, the one recorded at 2:17 a.m., just hours before Marco had pulled the phone from the harbor, I knew she was breaking. I want someone to know my real name. I want someone to see me, really see me, not the fake identity or the witness or the runner. I sat in the dark lab, surrounded by screens and servers and the architecture of digital surveillance, and listened to a stranger's loneliness and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Recognition. I played it again, her voice in my headphones, raw and honest and completely unguarded because she'd thought no one would ever hear it. I want to stop running. I want to stop being afraid. I want to exist again. The recording ended. I should have deleted it. Should have wiped the phone, destroyed the evidence, forgotten I'd ever heard her voice. Instead, I pulled up our facial recognition database and started searching for Sloane Morrison. Found her in 17 seconds. 29 years old, former data analyst at Layton Capital Management, witness in the federal prosecution of Marcus Layton and 14 associates. Entered witness protection under the name Sloane Graves. Last known location, Providence, Rhode Island. Except she'd thrown her phone into Boston Harbor, which meant she was here, somewhere in the city, running from something that had compromised her protection. I pulled up our surveillance feeds, traffic cameras, security systems, the network of watchers we maintain throughout the city, started running facial recognition searches for both names, Morrison and Graves. Nothing in the last 72 hours. She was good at hiding. But not good enough. I had her voice now, I had her patterns, her fears, her tells. I knew she'd choose isolation over risk, shadows over light, silence over connection. I could find her. The question was, what would I do when I did? I played the last recording again. Maybe some people aren't meant to be known. Wrong, I thought. Everyone's meant to be known. You just have to find the right person to do the knowing. And I was very, very good at finding things. Chapter 1. The Arrangement. Kieran. Vincent's office smelled like old leather and older money. I stood in front of his desk at 7:45 a.m., running on 2 hours of sleep and too much coffee, while my brother explained why my life was about to get significantly more complicated. Marriage, Vincent said again, like repetition would make the word less absurd. Non-negotiable. Everything's negotiable. I kept my voice level, controlled. Getting emotional with Vincent was like showing blood to a shark. That's literally how negotiation works. Not this time. He leaned back in his chair, the same chair our father had died in, bullet through the skull 10 years ago. Vincent had kept it. Said it reminded him what happened to men who got careless. The Calabrese family controls the shipping routes we need for the European expansion. They're old world Italian. Traditional. They don't do business with bachelors. Then find someone else for the expansion. There is no one else. It's Calabrese or nothing. He lit a cigar, the smell filling the already stale air. And they've made it clear, they want family ties, blood, or marriage. Since you're not offering to have a child with Matteo Calabrese, marriage it is. I'd been expecting this conversation for weeks. Ever since the Calabrese deal had started taking shape, I'd seen the writing on the wall. Vincent needed this alliance. The family needed it. And I was the unmarried son, the logical sacrifice. But expecting something didn't make it easier to swallow. Anyone from our world will be a liability, I said. Every family has agendas, loyalties. I marry a Calabrese cousin or a Romano daughter, and suddenly I'm a pawn in someone else's game. Then marry someone outside our world. You just said they want traditional family ties. They want marriage. They want the appearance of stability, commitment, family values. Vincent studied me through a haze of cigar smoke. They don't actually care who you marry as long as you're married. Find someone clean, someone with no connections to our business, someone who won't ask questions. You're describing a prostitute. I'm describing a transaction. He tapped ash into a crystal tray. You're a smart man, Kieran. You've built systems that keep this family running. Surely you can find one woman willing to sign a contract. I thought about the voice memos. About Sloane Morrison's confession in the dark, her loneliness bleeding through every word. About the way she'd said, I want someone to know my real name, like it was the most desperate wish in the world. How long? I asked. What? How long does the marriage need to last? For the Calabrese deal? Vincent considered. A year, maybe 2. Long enough to prove you're serious. Long enough for them to believe the alliance is stable. And after? After, you do whatever you want. Divorce, annulment, I don't care. As long as the business is secure first. I walked to the window, looked out at the city waking up below us. Somewhere out there, Sloane was hiding, running, afraid and alone, and convinced no one would ever really know her. I'll handle it, I said. You'll handle it how? I'll find someone. Give me 48 hours. Vincent's eyes narrowed. You already have someone in mind. Maybe. Kieran. 48 hours, I repeated. Trust me. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Fine, but if you can't deliver, I'm choosing for you, and you won't like my choice. I left his office and went straight back to my lab. The facial recognition search had been running all night, processing thousands of hours of surveillance footage from across the city. Now, at 8:17 a.m., it finally pinged. Match found. 73% confidence. I pulled up the footage. Security camera from a 24-hour convenience store in Dorchester, time-stamped at 1:43 a.m. A woman in a dark hoodie, face mostly obscured, buying bottled water and protein bars with cash. But the angle caught her profile for just a moment, the curve of her jaw, the shape of her mouth. Sloane Morrison. I enhanced the image, ran it through facial structure analysis. 89% match. Good enough. I pulled up the store's location, started mapping surveillance cameras in the surrounding area. If she was buying supplies in Dorchester at 1:43 a.m., she was probably staying within a mile radius. Somewhere she could reach on foot. Somewhere off the grid. I flagged every abandoned building, every foreclosed property, every location that wouldn't require ID or credit cards. 17 possibilities. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door. Marco intercepted me in the hallway. "Boss, you need backup?" "No." Vincent said. I'm aware of what Vincent said. I kept walking. "I'm going alone." "At least take a comm unit. Something." I paused. Marco was loyal, competent, and genuinely concerned about my safety, which made him one of maybe 3 people in the organization I actually trusted. "Fine, comm unit. But you stay off channel unless I call." "Deal." Sloan. The abandoned textile factory in Dorchester had been empty for 6 years, according to the faded foreclosure notice, still taped to the front door. It was perfect. No security system, no working utilities, no neighbors close enough to hear anything. Just 3 floors of rotting floorboards and broken windows, and the kind of pervasive damp that came from being 2 blocks off the harbor. I'd been here for 4 days, sleeping in what used to be a supervisor's office on the 2nd floor. I'd found an old sleeping bag in a donation bin, bought supplies with the last of my cash, and settled into the routine of survival. Stay quiet, stay hidden, stay alive. The hardest part was the silence. Without the phone, I had nothing to talk to. No way to record my thoughts. No outlet for the anxiety that built up like pressure in my chest. I'd tried writing in a notebook I'd stolen from CVS, but it felt too permanent, too dangerous. Paper could be found, read, used against me. So instead, I just sat in the silence and tried not to lose my mind. I was eating a protein bar and staring at water stains on the ceiling when I heard it. Footsteps. Not the random sounds of the building settling or rats in the walls. Deliberate footsteps, human, coming up the stairs. My heart stopped, then started again at triple speed. I grabbed the knife I'd been keeping under the sleeping bag, a cheap folding blade from the convenience store. Nothing that would stop a serious threat, but better than nothing. The footsteps stopped outside the office door. A knock. Polite, controlled, completely surreal given the circumstances. Sloan Morrison, a man's voice. Calm, measured, with an accent I couldn't quite place. "I'd like to talk to you. I'm unarmed, and I'm alone." My hand tightened on the knife. Nobody should know that name. Nobody should know I was here. "I'm going to open the door," the voice continued. "Please don't stab me. This conversation will be much more productive if we're both conscious." The door opened slowly. A man stepped into the room, hands visible, empty. Tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair and gray eyes that seemed to catalog everything in a single glance. He wore expensive clothes like they were a uniform. Dark jeans, black jacket, boots that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. He looked at me the way I imagined forensic analysts looked at crime scenes. Detached, clinical, missing nothing. "My name is Kieran Hale," he said. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to offer you a deal." "How did you find me?" My voice came out steadier than I felt. "I'm very good at finding things." He stayed in the doorway, keeping distance between us. "You bought supplies at the convenience store on Dorchester Avenue. There are only 17 locations within walking distance where someone could hide without documentation. This was number 4. You tracked me from a convenience store purchase?" "I tracked you from your facial structure on a security camera." He tilted his head slightly. "You're very good at hiding, but you're not invisible. Not to someone with the right resources." "What do you want?" "To help you." I laughed. It came out harsh, disbelieving. Nobody wants to help me. People either want to use me or kill me. I want to do both, technically. His expression didn't change, but mostly help. "Get out." "I know about Marcus Layton. I know you testified against him and his associates. I know your protection was compromised and you ran." He paused. "And I know you threw your phone in Boston Harbor 4 days ago because you were tired of running." The bottom dropped out of my stomach. "How?" "We monitor the harbor for evidence disposal, criminal housekeeping. Your phone was retrieved along with a gun and a laptop. He pulled a small device from his pocket. Looked like a phone but wasn't. I recovered the data, including 64 voice memos. The knife trembled in my hand. You listened to them. All of them. No apology, no shame, just matter-of-fact admission. You're in danger, Sloan. The people who found your safe house are still looking, and eventually, they'll find you again. You need protection. And you're offering it? Out of the goodness of your heart? No, out of mutual benefit. He put the device away. I need a wife. You need to disappear. We can help each other. The words were so absurd I almost laughed again. A wife? Yes. You're insane. Possibly, but I'm also serious. He moved slightly, and I realized he was deliberately positioning himself in a non-threatening stance. My family, the Hale family, we're negotiating a business alliance that requires me to be married. I need someone with no connections to our world. Someone who won't ask questions about the business. Someone who needs protection badly enough to agree to a contractual arrangement. You want me to marry a criminal so you can close a business deal? Yes. In exchange for what? Complete identity reconstruction. New name, new history. Documentation so clean even federal databases won't find the seams. Protection from anyone looking for Sloan Morrison or Sloan Graves. Financial security. And after 1 year, if you want out, you walk away with enough money to start over anywhere in the world. I stared at him. Why me? Because you're desperate. Because you're intelligent enough to understand the terms. Because you're already good at hiding, which means you'll be good at keeping secrets. He paused. And because I know you want to stop running. You said so yourself. I want to exist again. Heat flooded my face. He'd heard that. Heard all of it. Every vulnerable confession, every moment of weakness. You had no right. I know, but I did it anyway. His gray eyes held mine. And now I'm offering you a way out. Not perfect, not risk-free, but better than this. He gestured at the room, the sleeping bag, the water bottles, the knife in my shaking hand. You don't know me, I said. I know you better than you think. His voice softened, almost imperceptibly. I know you take your coffee black. I know you're afraid of the dark, but sleep with the lights off anyway. I know you had a cat named Hemingway. I know you're lonely enough that you spent 18 months recording voice memos to no one because it was better than complete silence. Each fact landed like a punch. He did know me, had heard my voice in the dark, had listened to my secrets, had cataloged my fears like data points. That's not knowing someone, I whispered. That's surveillance. Maybe, but it's more than most married people have. He pulled out a business card, set it on the dusty desk. Think about it. You have 48 hours before the people looking for you check this building. I can make sure they never find you. Or you can keep running and see how long you last. He turned to leave. Wait. The word escaped before I could stop it. If I say yes, if I agree to this insane arrangement, what are the actual terms? He turned back. 1 year, minimum. We live together. Separate bedrooms, unless you decide otherwise. You attend events with me, play the role of devoted wife in public. In private, you do whatever you want, as long as it doesn't compromise the arrangement. After a year, you can choose to divorce. If you do, you get $5 million, and all records of the arrangement are destroyed. And if someone finds out it's fake, then we both have problems. Which is why it can't be fake. It has to be legally binding, real marriage, real commitment, just time limited. What about your family? Won't they know? My brother knows. He's the one who needs the alliance. Everyone else will believe what we show them. He studied my face. You're good at pretending to be someone else. You've been doing it for 18 months. That's different. How? I didn't have an answer. 48 hours, he repeated. The card has a number. It's secure. When you call, and you will call, we'll discuss details. You're very confident. I'm very realistic. You're out of options, Sloan. I'm offering you the least terrible choice. He paused at the door. For what it's worth, I meant what I said. I want to help. The marriage serves my purposes, but your safety is part of the deal. I don't break my word. How do I know that? You don't. But in 47 hours and 56 minutes, when you're hearing footsteps on those stairs again and you realize they're not mine, you'll wish you'd trusted me. Then he was gone, footsteps receding down the stairs, leaving me alone with a business card and the horrifying realization that he was probably right. I picked up the card. Heavy stock, embossed lettering, just a phone number, no name, no address. The kind of card carried by people who didn't need to explain who they were. I should throw it away, should run again, find another hiding place, another city, another life. But I was so tired. And somewhere in those 64 voice memos, I'd admitted that I wanted to stop running. Maybe this was how you stopped. Not by finding safety, but by making a deal with the devil and hoping he kept his word. I put the card in my pocket and tried to convince myself I wasn't actually considering this. I was still trying 47 hours later when I heard the footsteps again. Different footsteps this time, heavier, multiple sets, men's voices, low and urgent. They'd found me. I grabbed my knife with one hand and Kieran Hale's card with the other and ran for the fire escape. Chapter 2. The Contract. Sloan. I made it 3 blocks before I had to stop. My lungs burned, legs shaking from the sprint down the fire escape and through back alleys I'd memorized during 4 days of paranoid preparation. The footsteps behind me had faded. I'd lost them in the maze of abandoned buildings and chain-link fences, but I knew it was temporary. They'd found me once. They'd find me again. I ducked into a shuttered laundromat, pressed my back against the cold brick, and pulled out Kieran Hale's card with trembling fingers. Just a phone number, black ink on heavy white stock. No instructions, no reassurance, nothing but 10 digits, and the promise of a man who'd invaded my privacy and offered me salvation in the same breath. I pulled out the burner phone I'd bought yesterday, my last $60, money I couldn't afford to waste, but couldn't afford not to spend. 47 hours, he'd said. 47 hours until they found me. He'd been off by 3 hours, which meant either he'd underestimated them or he'd been testing me, seeing if I'd call before I was truly desperate. I dialed. He answered on the first ring. Sloan. Not a question. He'd been waiting. They found me. My voice came out breathless, afraid. I hated the sound of it. 3 men. I got out, but... Where are you? Laundromat. Corner of Dorchester and 5th. Stay there. Don't move. I'm 7 minutes away. How do you know? Your phone has GPS. I've been tracking it since you turned it on. No apology, just fact. 7 minutes. Stay inside, stay away from windows. He hung up. I should have been angry about the tracking, should have felt violated, manipulated, trapped. Instead, I just felt a wave of exhausted relief that someone knew where I was, that someone was coming. God, I was pathetic. I moved deeper into the laundromat, crouched behind a row of industrial washers that hadn't run in years. The place smelled like mildew and rust. Through the grimy front window I could see the street, empty now, but for how long? 6 minutes. I counted my heartbeats, tried to slow my breathing. Thought about the voice memos Kieran had heard. All those nights talking to myself, confessing fears I'd never say aloud to a real person. He knew I bit my nails when I was anxious. Did he know I was doing it now? Did he expect it? 4 minutes. A car turned onto the street. Black sedan, too clean for this neighborhood. My hand tightened on the knife. The car slowed, stopped in front of the laundromat. Not Kieran. Couldn't be. He'd said 7 minutes, and it had only been. The driver's door opened. Kieran stepped out. He'd lied about the time. Intentional, probably. Wanted to see if I'd panic, if I'd run again, testing my capacity for trust. I stood up, moved toward the door. He saw me through the window, made a sharp gesture. Stay. Then he pulled out his phone, typed something, waited. My burner buzzed. Unknown. 3 men in a gray van, 2 blocks east. They're circling back. When I say go, you have 5 seconds to get in the car. Understand? I typed back, yes. Unknown. Go. I burst through the door, crossed the sidewalk in 4 strides. Kieran already had the passenger door open. I dove in. He slammed it shut, was back in the driver's seat before I'd even buckled the seatbelt. The car moved smoothly into traffic, no screeching tires or dramatic acceleration. Just a normal sedan driven by a normal man on a normal Tuesday morning. Except nothing about this was normal. Who were they? I asked when we'd gone 6 blocks without incident. Private contractors. Ex-military, probably. Kieran's eyes flicked between the road and the rearview mirror. Marcus Layton hired them to find you after federal protection failed. They've been working the city systematically, hitting every location someone in your situation might hide. How do you know that? Because I intercepted their communications 3 days ago. He turned onto a side street. I've been monitoring their search grid. They would have reached your building within 48 hours. I told you the truth about that. But you lied about how long it would take you to reach me. I compressed the timeline to observe your decision-making under pressure. He said it like it was reasonable, like testing people was just another day's work. You called immediately when threatened, which tells me your survival instinct overrides your pride. That's useful information. I'm not a fucking experiment. Everyone's an experiment. The question is whether you learn from the data. He glanced at me briefly. You're angry. That's good. Means you're not broken yet. I wanted to hit him. Wanted to demand he stop the car and let me out, let me take my chances on my own. But I'd tried that. And it had ended with me hiding in abandoned buildings, waiting for men with guns to find me. Where are we going? I asked instead. Somewhere secure. We need to finalize the arrangement before Layton's people expand their search grid. He turned onto a highway ramp. You're agreeing to the marriage. That's why you called. I'm considering it. No, you've already decided. You just haven't admitted it to yourself yet. His voice was maddeningly calm. If you were still deciding, you'd have asked more questions. Instead, you asked where we're going. Forward-focused language. You've accepted the premise. You're very sure of yourself. I'm very good at reading people, especially you. He merged into traffic. I've listened to 64 recordings of your unfiltered thoughts. I know how you think, how you rationalize, how you cope with fear. Right now, you're telling yourself this is temporary, just 1 year. You can survive anything for 1 year. He was right. I hated that he was right. And you're also telling yourself, he continued, that maybe, possibly, this could be the thing that finally makes you safe. That maybe Kieran Hale is dangerous enough to protect you from the other dangerous people. That maybe aligning yourself with a criminal is the smartest thing you've done since testifying against one. I looked out the window. Are you reading my mind or just showing off? Both. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. I like showing off. It's a character flaw. Despite everything, I almost smiled back. Kieran. The safe house was in Brookline, tucked into a quiet residential street that screamed, nothing illegal happens here. 3-bedroom colonial, maintained lawn, neighbors who worked 9 to 5 and didn't ask questions. It was boring, which made it perfect. I parked in the garage, waited for the door to close completely before letting Sloane out of the car. She moved cautiously, cataloging exits and sight lines. Good instincts. This is yours? She asked. One of several properties. This one's clean. No connection to the family business. Registered under a shell corporation that doesn't trace back to me. I unlocked the interior door. You'll stay here while we finalize paperwork. Could be a few days. She stepped into the kitchen. Clean, modern, impersonal. I'd had it stocked yesterday. Food, toiletries, clothes in her size. Preparation. How long have you been planning this? She asked, opening the refrigerator. Fresh produce, milk, actual food instead of protein bars and bottled water. Since I listened to the first voice memo, I set my keys on the counter. I recognized the opportunity immediately. You needed protection. I needed a wife. The alignment was obvious. Obvious, she repeated. Right. Obviously, you should marry a stranger based on her private recordings. You're not a stranger. I know you. You know things about me. That's different. Is it? I moved to the coffee maker, started brewing. Most married couples know surface details. Favorite foods, career goals, family drama. Performative information they choose to share. I know what you say when you think no one's listening. I know your real fears, your real desires. That's deeper than most marriages ever get. She was quiet for a moment. Then, that's also incredibly fucked up. Yes, I poured 2 cups, but fucked up doesn't mean untrue. She accepted the coffee I offered, our fingers brushing briefly. She didn't pull away as quickly as she could have. What happens now? She asked. Now we formalize the agreement. I have a lawyer coming this afternoon to draw up the contract. You'll review it, negotiate any terms you want changed, sign when you're comfortable. And if I'm never comfortable, then you don't sign. But Marcus Layton's people will find you within a week, and I can't protect you without legal grounds to keep you close. I leaned against the counter. The marriage gives me justification. You're my wife, my responsibility. Anyone who touches you answers to me and my family. That's significant deterrent. Your family is the mafia. My family is a multi-generational criminal organization with diversified interests in legitimate and illegitimate enterprises. I sipped my coffee. But yes, colloquially, mafia works. And I'm supposed to just join that world? You're supposed to exist on the periphery of it. You'll live with me, attend events with me, present as my wife in social situations, but you won't be involved in the business itself. You'll be insulated. Until I'm not. She set down her coffee cup. Until someone decides I'm a liability or a target or useful leverage. That won't happen. You can't promise that. Yes, I can. I held her gaze. I'm very good at protecting my assets. And once we're married, you'll be my most important asset. I don't lose things that matter to me. Is that supposed to be romantic? It's supposed to be honest. I pulled out my phone, pulled up a document. This is the preliminary contract. Read it. Take your time. My lawyer will be here at 3 to answer questions. She took the phone, started scrolling. I watched her face as she read the micro-expressions I'd learned from the voice memos. The slight furrow when she hit something concerning. The lip bite when she was thinking. The way her shoulders dropped half an inch when she found a clause she approved of. $5 million, she said finally, after 1 year. If you choose to divorce, if you stay, we renegotiate terms. Why would I stay? Maybe you won't. Maybe you'll take the money and disappear. I refilled my coffee. Or maybe you'll discover that being married to me isn't as terrible as you're imagining. Maybe you'll find the security appealing, the resources, the fact that you'll never have to hide in an abandoned building again. Or maybe I'll discover that being married to a criminal who spies on people is exactly as terrible as I'm imagining. That's possible too. I smiled slightly. But I don't think so. You're practical, Sloan. You understand cost-benefit analysis. And the benefits of this arrangement significantly outweigh the costs. She scrolled further, stopped. Separate bedrooms unless I consent otherwise. Yes. What does that mean exactly? It means we each have our own space. Private rooms. No expectation of physical intimacy unless you explicitly agree to it. I paused. The marriage needs to appear real in public. In private, it can be whatever we negotiate. And if I never consent? Then we maintain separate bedrooms indefinitely. I met her eyes. I'm not interested in forcing anything, Sloan. This only works if you choose it. She studied me for a long moment. Why do I feel like you're manipulating me into thinking I have more choice than I actually do? Because you're perceptive. And because all choices are constrained by circumstances, I'm just being honest about the constraints. That's not reassuring. It's not meant to be. It's meant to be accurate. I checked my watch. You have 4 hours before the lawyer arrives. I suggest you use that time to think about what you actually want from this arrangement. What terms matter to you? What you're willing to negotiate on. And you? What do you want? I want a wife who can play her role convincingly. who understands discretion, who won't betray my trust or compromise my family's security. I paused. And I want you safe. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. She laughed, short and sharp. You want me safe. The man who's been stalking me through surveillance footage and phone records wants me safe. Yes. That's insane. Probably. I moved toward the door. There's a bedroom upstairs, first door on the right. Clothes in the closet, your size. Bathroom stocked. Make yourself comfortable. I'll be back before the lawyer arrives. Where are you going? To make sure Marcus Layton's people don't find this address. I stopped at the threshold. Locked the door behind me. Don't answer it for anyone except me. If something feels wrong, there's a panic button under the kitchen sink. Press it, and my security team will be here in under 5 minutes. You have a panic button under the sink? I have panic buttons in every property I own. Paranoia keeps you alive in this business. I pulled out my car keys. 4 hours, Sloan. Think carefully. I left before she could respond. Sloan. The bedroom was nicer than anywhere I'd lived in the past 2 years. King-sized bed with actual sheets, not just a sleeping bag on bare floor. Dresser, closet, desk. A window with curtains that blocked the light completely when closed. Everything clean and new and impersonal, like a hotel room designed for long-term stay. I opened the closet. He hadn't been exaggerating. Clothes in my size. Jeans, sweaters, dresses, even pajamas. Tags still attached. Everything from mid-range brands. Nothing flashy, but nothing cheap either. Practical choices for someone who didn't want to stand out. He'd been planning this. Not just since yesterday. Since the phone. He'd been preparing for days at least. Which meant he'd been confident. I'd agree. I pulled out a pair of jeans and a soft gray sweater, changed out of the clothes I'd been wearing for 3 days straight. The shower called to me, but I couldn't make myself that vulnerable yet. Not when I still didn't fully trust that this was real. Instead, I sat on the bed with Kieran's phone, reading the contract. It was thorough, disturbingly thorough. Clauses covering everything from financial arrangements to public appearances, to what happened if one of us died during the marriage term. The language was clinical, precise, leaving nothing to interpretation. Article 4. Termination conditions. Either party may terminate this agreement after the minimum term of 1 year from the date of legal marriage. Upon termination, the following conditions apply. A. Financial settlement. If terminated by Party B, Sloan Morrison/Graves, Party A, Kieran Hale, shall provide a one-time payment of $5 million, $5 million United States dollars, within 30 days of divorce finalization. B. Identity protection. All records of this arrangement, including but not limited to contracts, correspondence, and documentation, shall be destroyed. Party A will provide Party B with complete identity reconstruction, including legal documentation, under a new name. C. Non-disclosure. Both parties agree to maintain absolute confidentiality regarding the contractual nature of the marriage. Breach of this clause results in financial penalties up to $10 million, $10 million United States dollars. $10 million for talking. Jesus. I kept reading. Article 7. Lifestyle and cohabitation. Party B will reside with Party A in his primary residence. Separate sleeping quarters will be maintained, unless both parties mutually agree otherwise. Party B will attend social, family, and business functions, as required to maintain the appearance of a legitimate marriage. Party B will have full access to household staff, vehicles, and amenities. Household staff. Vehicles. This was a different world than the one I'd been living in. Article 9. Protection and security. Party A assumes full responsibility for Party B's physical safety and security. This includes, but is not limited to, personal security detail, secure housing, identity protection, and neutralization of threats to Party B's well-being. Party A's family organization will extend full protection to Party B as a member of the Hale family. Neutralization of threats. That was a polite way of saying Kieran would kill anyone who came after me. I set down the phone, hands shaking. This was real. He was offering to marry me, pay me $5 million, give me a new identity and murder my enemies, in exchange for 1 year of playing pretend. It was insane. It was also the best offer I'd had in 18 months. I thought about the voice memos. About saying I want to exist again into the darkness, never imagining anyone would hear it. Never imagining someone would listen and then show up with a solution. The fucked up thing was, Kieran was right. He did know me, better than people I'd known for years, because he'd heard me when I thought I was alone, when all my defenses were down. And instead of using that against me, instead of only using it against me, he was offering protection. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Unknown. The lawyer's name is Maria Volterra. She's been with my family for 15 years. You can trust her to answer honestly. My favels K. How did he know I was worrying about the lawyer? Was he watching me somehow? I looked around the room. No visible cameras, but that didn't mean anything. Kieran was a tech specialist. He could have surveillance anywhere. I texted back. Are you watching me right now? Unknown. No, I disabled cameras in the bedroom and bathroom. Your privacy is yours unless you're in danger. But I know how you think. You're wondering if you can trust the lawyer. You can. Me. Stop reading my mind. It's creepy. Unknown. I'm not reading your mind. I'm reading your patterns. There's a difference. Me. Not to me. Unknown. Noted. I'll try to be less accurate. Despite everything, I almost smiled. Me. Why are you doing this? Really? The response took longer this time. Unknown. Because I heard you say you wanted to stop running. And I have the resources to make that happen. And because the typing indicator appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Unknown. Because I've been alone in rooms full of people too. I understood what you meant. I stared at the message. That was the most honest thing he'd said since we met. Not manipulation, not strategy, just truth. Me. I'll read the contract. I'll talk to the lawyer. But I'm not promising anything. Unknown. Fair enough. See you at 3. I set the phone down and tried to ignore the fact that I'd already made my decision. I was going to marry Kieran Hale. Not because I wanted to. Not because I trusted him. But because the alternative was running forever. And I was so tired of running. And maybe he was right. Maybe being known, even by someone who'd invaded your privacy to do it, was better than being invisible. Chapter 3. The Paper Marriage. Kieran. Maria Volterra arrived at 2:45, 15 minutes early as always. I met her at the door, took the briefcase she carried like it contained state secrets. In a way, it did. Every contract Maria drafted was airtight enough to survive federal scrutiny, which was exactly why the family kept her on retainer. She's upstairs, I said, reading the preliminary contract. And? Maria's dark eyes missed nothing. She'd been my father's lawyer before his death, had transitioned smoothly to advising Vincent and me. She knew our business, knew our secrets, and never flinched. And she's going to sign. You're confident. I'm realistic. She's out of options and she knows it. I led Maria into the living room. But she's smart. She'll negotiate, probably on the financial terms. Most people would negotiate on the personal terms. The bedroom clause, the public appearances. She's not most people. She's been running on survival instinct for 18 months. Money represents security to her. Independence. I checked my watch. She'll want more upfront, less deferred. Wants to know she can leave if she needs to. And you'll agree? To a point. The marriage needs to last the full year for the Calabrese alliance. After that, I don't care about the money. I paused. But I do care about her safety. That's non-negotiable. Maria studied me with that particular expression she had, the one that said she was reading subtext I didn't intend to broadcast. This isn't just business for you, she said. It's entirely business. Kieran, I've known you since you were 14. I know when you're lying. Then you know I'm very good at it. I moved toward the stairs. Come on, Let's get this done. Sloane was sitting at the desk when we entered, still wearing the clothes from the closet. She'd showered. Her hair was damp, curling slightly at the ends, and some of the exhaustion had faded from her face. She looked younger like this, more vulnerable. She stood when she saw Maria, instinctive politeness overriding wariness. "Sloane Morrison," I said. "This is Maria Volterra. My lawyer, and as of this afternoon, yours as well." "Mine?" Sloane looked between us. "You need independent legal counsel to review this contract," Maria said, extending her hand. "I'll be representing your interests, not Kieran's. Anything you tell me is privileged. Anything you want changed, we negotiate." Sloane shook her hand slowly. "You work for Kieran's family." "I work for the Hale family, yes. But in this room right now, I work for you." Maria set her briefcase on the desk, opened it with practiced efficiency. "Trust is earned, Miss Morrison. So let me start by telling you the truth. This contract, as written, favors Kieran significantly. My job is to balance that. To make sure you're protected legally, financially, and personally." "Why would you do that if you work for his family?" "Because a contract where one party feels exploited always fails eventually, and failure in this context would be catastrophic for everyone involved." Maria pulled out documents. "Plus, I like winning negotiations, and right now, you're the underdog. That's motivating." Despite herself, Sloane smiled slightly. "Okay, where do we start?" "The money," Maria and I said simultaneously. Sloane's eyebrows rose. "You both knew I'd want to renegotiate that." "You're predictable in specific ways," I said. "The money represents independence to you. You'll want more control over it." "Stop doing that." "Doing what?" "Reading me like I'm a book you've already finished." She sat back down, crossed her arms. "It's unsettling." "Noted. I'll try to be less accurate." I'd already used that line in text. She remembered. I could see the recognition in her eyes. "Gentlemen," Maria interrupted smoothly, "shall we focus on the contract? Miss Morrison, you've reviewed the preliminary terms. What concerns you most?" Sloane pulled the phone closer, scrolled to a specific section. Article 4, subsection A. The $5 million only comes if I terminate the marriage after 1 year. If Kieran terminates it, I get nothing. "Correct," Maria said. "Standard prenuptial language." "Bullshit." Sloane's voice was sharp. "If he decides after 6 months that this isn't working, I've sacrificed a year of my life and get zero compensation. That's not balanced." "Agreed," Maria said immediately. She turned to me. "She's right. The termination clause needs to be mutual. If I agree to that, she could tank the marriage deliberately at 11 months. And still collect," I pointed out. "Then we add performance conditions," Maria said. "She gets the full amount if she fulfills her obligations, public appearances, discretion, maintaining the appearance of a legitimate marriage. If she violates those terms, the payment is prorated." I considered. "And if I terminate early without cause?" "Same payment structure. She gets compensated for time served, so to speak." Maria was already typing notes. "We can set monthly benchmarks. Each month successfully completed equals a specific amount. By month 12, she's earned the full $5 million regardless of who initiates divorce." "I want half up front," Sloane said. The room went quiet. "Half?" I asked. $2.5 million before the marriage even begins?" "Yes, because right now, all the power is yours. You're offering me protection, housing, security. All things you can revoke whenever you want. I need leverage. I need to know that even if this goes sideways, I have resources." She met my eyes. "You said you want me to feel secure. Prove it." Maria looked at me. "It's not an unreasonable request. It's an extremely unreasonable request. That's more money than most people see in a lifetime. And it's less than 1% of your family's annual revenue." Sloane's voice was steady. "I did my research on the Hale organization while I was reading the contract. You can afford it." "Research how?" I hadn't given her internet access. "Your phone has a browser. You left it with me," she shrugged. "I'm a data analyst. I analyze data." Despite the situation, I felt something close to admiration. She'd used the limited resources I'd provided to do exactly what I would have done, gather intelligence. $1 million up front, I countered. The remaining $4 million in monthly installments over the year. You still get the full amount, but I maintain some leverage to ensure you honor the contract. 1.5 up front, 3.5 distributed. Deal. I extended my hand. She looked at it for a moment, then shook. Her grip was firm, businesslike. Well, Maria said dryly, that was easier than expected. Now let's discuss the difficult parts. Sloan. The difficult parts, apparently, were everything else. We spent the next 3 hours going through the contract, line by line. Maria explained every clause, every loophole, every potential consequence I hadn't considered. Article 6, Public Conduct. I had to attend events with Kieran, play the devoted wife, convince his family and business associates the marriage was real. Maria added language specifying maximum frequency, no more than 3 events per week, and acceptable venues. Nothing illegal, nothing that put me in direct danger. Article 8, Privacy and Surveillance. Kieran's security would monitor my location for safety purposes, but I could request camera-free zones in our shared residence. Maria added that Kieran had to disclose all surveillance methods and couldn't record private conversations without my consent. Though I assume you've already violated that, I said, looking at Kieran. The voice memos were different. They were already recorded. I just listened. His expression didn't change. But going forward, your private conversations are private unless they indicate immediate danger. How reassuring. Article 11, Family Integration. I would be introduced to Kieran's family as his legitimate wife. Maria added protections, preventing them from involving me in illegal activities or using me as leverage in family conflicts. They won't, Kieran said. Vincent knows the terms. Everyone else will believe the marriage is real. And when they find out it's not, they won't. Because we'll make it convincing enough that even people looking for cracks won't find them. He leaned forward slightly. That's your primary job, Sloan. Sell this. Make people believe you chose me. That's going to require Oscar-worthy acting. You've been acting for 18 months. Different name, different history, different person. This is just another role. He was right. I hated that he was right. By 6-page M, we had a revised contract. Maria printed 2 copies, handed me one. Read it again, she said, front to back. Make sure you understand every word. This is legally binding. Once you sign, you're committed. I read slowly, carefully. The language was dense, but Maria had walked me through it enough that I understood the implications. $1 million deposited in my name within 48 hours of signing. 1 year of marriage, living with Kieran, playing the role of his wife. Complete identity reconstruction, new name, new documentation, protection from anyone looking for Sloan Morrison or Sloan Graves. Security detail, safe housing, neutralization of threats. After 12 months, I could walk away with the remaining $4 million and never see Kieran Hale again. It was everything I needed. It was also terrifying. If I sign this, I said slowly, and then I can't do it. If I break down at month 6, if I can't handle the pretending or the family or the pressure, what happens? The contract has an emergency exit clause, Maria said, flipping to page 17. If you experience legitimate psychological distress that makes continuing impossible, we can dissolve the marriage early. You'd get prorated payment and identity protection. But you'd have to prove the distress, and Kieran would have grounds to contest if he believes you're manufacturing it. I wouldn't contest, Kieran said quietly. If you genuinely can't do this, I'll let you out. The money doesn't matter compared to... He stopped. Compared to what? I asked. He held my gaze. Compared to keeping you safe. That's the point of this arrangement. The point is the business alliance. I'm the means to that end. You're both. I can accomplish multiple goals simultaneously. He stood, moved to the window. Sign or don't sign, Sloan. But if you're waiting for me to be something other than what I am, calculating, strategic, someone who sees people as problems to solve, you'll be waiting forever. This is who I am. The question is whether you can live with that for 12 months. I looked down at the contract, my future, in black and white. Maria touched my arm gently. You don't have to decide tonight. Take the contract, sleep on it. I'll sign now. The words came out steady, certain. Because waiting wouldn't change the fundamental equation. I needed protection. Kieran could provide it. Everything else was just negotiating the price. Maria produced a pin. Last chance. I know. I signed my name, Sloane Morrison, not Graves, my real name for the first time in 18 months, on the line above the date. Kieran signed below me, Kieran Hale. His handwriting was precise, controlled, like everything else about him. Maria witnessed, added her signature. Congratulations. You're contractually bound to marry. Romantic, I said. Practical, Kieran corrected. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling the courthouse. We can file for a marriage license tomorrow. Schedule the ceremony for Friday. This Friday? 3 days from now? The Calabrese meeting is in 2 weeks. I need you legally married before then. He was already dialing. Maria will handle the paperwork. You'll need to provide documentation, birth certificate ID. I assume you have those? In a storage unit, under my real name. I'd been paranoid enough to keep original documents hidden, separate from anything connected to witness protection. Give Marco the location. He'll retrieve them. Kieran spoke into the phone, scheduling something, his voice brisk and efficient. I turned to Maria. Is he always like this? Focused, yes. He doesn't do anything halfway. She packed up her briefcase. For what it's worth, Miss Morrison, I think you're making the right choice. Kieran is many things. Calculating, manipulative, occasionally ruthless. But he's also honest about what he is. And he keeps his word. Always. Even when keeping it costs him. Especially then. It's a pride thing. She smiled slightly. You'll be safe with him, that much I can promise. She left, and then it was just Kieran and me in the quiet house, the contract signed, the future sealed. So, I said, I guess we're doing this. We're doing this, he pocketed his phone. You'll stay here until the wedding. Marco will bring your documents tomorrow. The ceremony will be small, just family, the officiant. After that, you move into my primary residence. Where's that? Beacon Hill. Townhouse, 4 bedrooms, security system I designed personally. He moved toward the door. I'm staying at a hotel tonight. The panic button is under the kitchen sink if you need anything. Marco will be outside all night. You're leaving? You need space to process. And I need to finalize arrangements for Friday. He paused at the threshold. For what it's worth, Sloane, I meant what I said. I'll keep you safe. Whatever else happens, that's a promise. Then he was gone. I stood alone in the house that would be mine for 3 more days, holding a contract that had just sold the next year of my life, and tried to figure out if I'd made the smartest decision of my life or the worst mistake. The phone buzzed. Unknown. The money will be in your account by Thursday. New bank, new name, completely clean. Check your email tomorrow for details. Nas K. I typed back, thank you. Unknown. Don't thank me yet. Wait until you meet my family. Me. That bad? Unknown. Vincent's calculating. My grandmother is terrifying. Various cousins range from harmless to criminally insane. You'll fit right in. Me. Comforting. Unknown. I'm not trying to comfort you. I'm trying to prepare you. There's a difference. Me. I've noticed. A longer pause. Unknown. Get some sleep, Sloane. Friday's going to be intense. Me. Are you watching the house? How do you know I'm not sleeping? Unknown. I'm not watching, but it's 9:47 p.m. and you're still answering texts. If you were ready for sleep, you'd have stopped responding. Me. Stop being right about everything. Unknown. I'll try, but I'm not very good at trying. I smiled despite myself. Me. Good night, Kieran. Unknown. Good night, wife. The word sent a strange shiver through me. Not unpleasant, just significant. In 3 days, that would be true. I would be Kieran Hale's wife. A marriage built on surveillance and desperation and mutual need. It shouldn't work. But maybe, I thought as I climbed the stairs to the bedroom with the too-soft bed and the camera-free privacy, maybe it didn't need to work forever. Just 12 months. I could survive anything for 12 months. Kieran. The hotel room was sterile and anonymous, exactly what I needed. I sat at the desk with my laptop, pulling up surveillance feeds and security protocols, making sure Marcus Layton's people hadn't tracked Sloan to Brookline. Marco had reported no suspicious activity. The street was quiet, the house secure. She was safe. For now. My phone buzzed. Vincent. Tell me you closed the deal, he said without preamble. She signed. Wedding's Friday. And she understands the terms? No emotional complications? She understands it's a transaction. Whether there will be complications. I pulled up the footage from the house's exterior cameras, watched Marco doing perimeter checks. Time will tell. You're being cryptic. I don't like when you're cryptic. I'm being honest. Sloan is smart, capable, and deeply traumatized. She'll play the role because she needs to, but she's not a puppet. She'll push back. Can you handle that? I thought about the voice memos. About listening to her confess her loneliness in the dark. Her voice raw and unguarded. About the way she'd negotiated the contract, fighting for every advantage despite having no leverage. Yes, I said, I can handle it. Good. Because the Calabrese meeting is in 2 weeks, and if they sense any weakness, they won't. Sloan will be convincing. How can you be sure? Because I'd heard her pretend to be someone else for 18 months. Because I knew she understood survival meant adaptation. Because when she'd looked at me across the table and said, I'll sign now, there had been determination in her eyes, not defeat. I'm sure, I said. Vincent was quiet for a moment. You like her. She's useful. That's not what I asked. It's what I'm answering. I closed the laptop. The marriage serves our purposes. That's all that matters. If you say so. He didn't sound convinced. Bring her to Sunday dinner. Let Nana meet her before the wedding. If the old woman approves, everyone else will fall in line. My grandmother. Right. That would be challenging. I'll ask. Don't ask. Tell. She's about to be family. She needs to understand how we operate. He paused. And Kieran? Make sure she's ready. The Calabrese family will be watching every interaction, every gesture. If they think it's fake, it won't be fake. It's entirely fake. But it won't look fake. That's the point. I stood, moved to the window. The city glittered below, indifferent and vast. Trust me, Vincent. I know what I'm doing. I hope so, because if this goes wrong, it's not just the alliance we lose. It's our credibility, our power, everything. He hung up. I stood at the window for a long time, thinking about Sloan in that safe house, reading contracts and negotiating terms, and trying to convince herself she'd made the right choice. She had. Whether she knew it yet or not, I'd keep her safe, I'd honor the contract, and in 12 months, when she walked away with her money and her freedom, she'd be alive to enjoy it. That was success, by any reasonable metric. The fact that I was already dreading month 13, when she'd be gone and the house would be empty again, was irrelevant. This was business. I just had to keep remembering that. Chapter 4. Meeting the Family. Sloan. The money appeared in my account Thursday morning, exactly as promised. I stared at my phone screen, at the balance that had gone from $0 to $1 million overnight, and felt something between relief and vertigo. This was real. Kieran had kept his word, which meant I had to keep mine. The email had come with the bank notification, new identity documents, all digitally encrypted. My new name, Sloan Harper, birth certificate, social security card, driver's license, even a fabricated employment history. Someone had built an entire person overnight. Unknown Harper was your grandmother's maiden name. Found it in public records. Thought you'd prefer something with connection to your actual history. Nash K. He'd researched my family. Of course he had. Me. How much do you know about me that I haven't told you? Unknown. Everything that exists in databases, which is most things. Me. That's deeply unsettling. Unknown. Yes, but also useful. Speaking of which, Sunday dinner, my family, 6 p.m. Marco will drive you. Me. That's 2 days before the wedding. Isn't that backwards? Unknown. My grandmother insists on meeting you first. Tradition. Also, she'll know if you're lying, so prepare for that. Me. Your grandmother can detect lies? Unknown. She's 87 and has survived 4 decades in this business. She reads people the way I read code. You'll need to be genuine. Me. How do I be genuine about a fake marriage? Unknown. Tell her the truth about why you're doing it. Just leave out the word contract. She respects survival. She'll understand that. I read the message 3 times, trying to parse his meaning. Me. You want me to tell your grandmother I married you for protection? Unknown. I want you to tell her you married me because the alternative was worse. She'll respect that more than a love story. Me. Your family is very strange. Unknown. You have no idea. Sunday arrived too quickly. Marco picked me up at 5:30, driving a black sedan that probably cost more than my entire previous life. He was polite, professional, and slightly terrifying. 6'4" of pure muscle with a scar through his left eyebrow that suggested violence was a regular occurrence. Mr. Hale says you're nervous, Marco said as we drove through Boston traffic. Mr. Hale talks about me? He talks about everything. Details matter to him. Marco glanced at me in the rearview mirror. For what it's worth, Nana will like you. She likes people who don't bullshit. What if I bullshit accidentally? Don't, he said it simply. Just be honest. Tell her why you're really here. She'll either accept it or she won't, but lying will definitely make it worse. We pulled up to a house in the North End that looked like it had been transplanted directly from Sicily. 3 stories of weathered brick, iron balconies, flowering vines climbing the facade, beautiful and slightly menacing. Kieran was waiting at the door. He looked different than I'd seen him before, less controlled, more tense. His hands were in his pockets, shoulders tight. Nervous, I realized. He was actually nervous. You came, he said when I stepped out of the car. Did you think I wouldn't? I thought you might reconsider when you realized what you were walking into. He moved closer, lowering his voice. My family is intense. Vincent will interrogate you. My grandmother will test you. Various cousins will try to determine if you're a threat or an asset. It's not going to be comfortable. Nothing about this arrangement is comfortable. Fair point. He almost smiled. Ready? No, but let's do it anyway. He led me inside. The house smelled like garlic and tomato sauce, like Sunday dinners from a childhood I'd never had. Voices echoed from somewhere deeper in the house, Italian mixed with English, laughter, the clatter of dishes. A normal family dinner. Except this family controlled half of Boston's criminal enterprise. Kieran, a woman appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on an apron. Mid-50s, dark hair streaked with gray, warm smile. You're late. Nana's been asking about... She stopped, seeing me. Oh, you must be Sloane. Yes, hi. I extended my hand. You're... Rosa, Kieran's aunt, Vincent's mother. She ignored my hand and pulled me into a hug that smelled like basil and expensive perfume. Welcome, welcome. We're so happy to meet you finally. Kieran's been so secretive. I haven't been secretive, Kieran protested. I've been private. Same thing in this family. Rosa released me, studying my face with the same intensity Kieran had. Family trait, apparently. You're prettier than the photo. What photo? The one Kieran showed Nona. From your driver's license, I think. I turned to Kieran. You showed your grandmother my driver's license photo. She wanted to see what you looked like. I provided documentation. Normal people show family photos, not legal documents. We're not normal people. He touched my lower back, guiding me toward the dining room. Come on, everyone's waiting. The dining room was chaos in the best possible way. A long table, already set with mismatched plates and wine glasses, surrounded by at least 15 people ranging in age from early 20s to elderly. They all stopped talking when we entered, every eye turning to assess the newcomer. An older man at the head of the table stood. Vincent, I recognized from photos Kieran had shown me. He had the same gray eyes as his brother, but colder, more calculating. Sloane. He didn't smile. I'm Vincent. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for having me. Sit. Nona wants to meet you before we eat. He gestured to a chair near the far end of the table, where a tiny woman sat watching me, with eyes that missed absolutely nothing. Kieran's grandmother. She was smaller than I'd expected, maybe 5 feet tall, dressed entirely in black, white hair pulled into a severe bun. Her face was a map of wrinkles, but her gaze was sharp, predatory. I approached slowly, aware that everyone in the room was watching. Nana, Kieran said quietly, this is Sloane Morrison. Sloane, my grandmother, Lucia Hale. Lucia didn't extend her hand, just studied me with those terrifying eyes. Then she spoke, in Italian. I looked at Kieran helplessly. I don't. She says you're too thin. Someone should feed you properly. He translated, but I suspected he was softening whatever she'd actually said. Tell her I've been eating better recently, I said. Kieran translated. Lucia responded, longer this time. She wants to know why you're marrying me, Kieran said. His voice was neutral, but I caught the tension underneath. This was the test, the moment Maria had warned me about. I could lie. Make up a romantic story about love at first sight. Play the role I'd been hired to play. Or I could follow Marco's advice and tell the truth. I looked directly at Lucia. Because I was running out of places to hide, and your grandson offered me protection in exchange for marriage. It's a business arrangement that benefits both of us. The room went completely silent. Lucia's eyes narrowed. She spoke again, rapid Italian that sounded like an interrogation. She asks, Kieran translated slowly, if you're using me. Yes, we're using each other. That's how arrangements work. More Italian. Kieran's jaw tightened. She says that's honest, at least. But honesty without respect is just cruelty. Do you respect me? I thought about the voice memos. About Kieran listening to my secrets in the dark and then showing up to offer salvation instead of exploitation. About the way he'd negotiated the contract, giving me more than he had to because I'd asked. Yes, I said, I respect him. He's brilliant and calculating and sometimes terrifying. But he's also honest about what he is. And he keeps his promises. I respect that. Lucia studied me for what felt like an eternity. Then she smiled. Actually smiled. She said something in Italian that made several people around the table laugh. What did she say? I asked Kieran. She said you have teeth. That I'll need them, being married to someone as stubborn as me. He sounded relieved. She approves. That's it? I just had to be honest? With Nona, honesty is everything. She's seen too many people lie to protect feelings or maintain appearances. He pulled out the chair next to his grandmother. Sit. Dinner's about to start. Kieran. Watching Sloane navigate my family was like watching a masterclass in adaptation. She sat between Nona and my cousin Angela, fielding questions about her background, carefully edited version, her work, vague enough to be believable, her relationship with me, honest enough to be convincing. Vincent watched from across the table, analyzing every response. I could see him cataloging data, assessing whether she was liability or asset. How did you two meet? Angela asked, topping off Sloane's wine glass. Sloane glanced at me. We'd prepared for this question. A wedding, she said. I was working the event. Kieran was a guest. We talked, and, she shrugged, it progressed from there. Love at first sight? Angela pressed. Recognition at first sight, Sloane corrected. I recognized something in him. He recognized something in me. Love came later. It was perfect. Truthful enough to be believable. Romantic enough to satisfy curiosity. vague enough to avoid details we hadn't coordinated. "And you're okay with," Angela gestured vaguely, "all of this, the family business?" "I'm okay with Kieran," Sloane said carefully. "What his family does is separate from what we are." Nana said something in Italian. Rosa translated, "She says that's naive. Family and business are always connected." "Then I'll learn to navigate that," Sloane replied. "I'm good at adapting." Nana nodded approvingly. Dinner progressed. Pasta, chicken, vegetables that Rosa had probably spent all day preparing. Wine flowed freely. Conversation shifted from English to Italian and back, a rhythm I'd grown up with, but that must have been disorienting for Sloane. She handled it gracefully. Listened when she couldn't understand, asked clarifying questions, laughed at jokes, even when she only caught half the meaning. Vincent caught my eye across the table. Nodded slightly. Approval. After dinner, Nona summoned me to the kitchen with a sharp gesture. "Bring the girl," she said in Italian. "Her name is Sloane." "Bring Sloane, then. I want to talk to both of you." I found Sloane on the back porch, looking out at the small garden Rosa maintained. She turned when she heard me. "How am I doing?" she asked. "Better than expected. Nona wants to talk to us." "Is that good or bad?" With Nona, it's always both. We found her in the kitchen, sitting at a small table with 3 cups of espresso already poured. "Sit," she commanded. We sat. Nona studied us both for a long moment. Then she spoke in English. Slow, heavily accented, but clear. "You think I don't know this is arrangement," she said. "You think old woman is stupid." "Nona," I started. She held up a hand. "I know, I always know, but I don't care about arrangement. I care about respect. About loyalty." She turned to Sloane. "You respect my grandson?" "Yes," Sloane said without hesitation. "You keep his secrets?" "Yes." "You protect him, even when it costs you?" Sloane paused. "I don't know yet. We haven't been tested." Nana smiled. "Honest. Good." She turned to me. "You protect her?" "Always." "You keep promises to her?" "Yes." "Even when family needs something different?" I met Nana's eyes. Sloane is going to be family. Her needs don't conflict with family needs. Pretty words. We see if true. She pushed the espresso cups toward us. "Drink, then I give blessing." We drank. The espresso was strong enough to strip paint, sweet enough to be bearable. Nana made the sign of the cross, murmured something in Italian. Then she reached across the table and took both our hands, placing them together. "Marriage is contract," she said, "but contract can become something real if you let it. Don't let it." She squeezed our hands. "But don't throw it away because you're afraid." She released us and stood, moving toward the door with surprising agility for someone her age. "Nana," I called. "What does that mean?" "Means you figure out yourself." She paused at the threshold. "Wedding Friday. I come. I watch. I make sure you do it right." Then she was gone. Sloane and I sat in silence, hands still touching where Nona had placed them. "Your family is intense," Sloane said finally. "I warned you." "You warned me. You didn't prepare me." She pulled her hand back slowly. "But they approved. That's good, right?" "That's essential." If Nona hadn't approved, the marriage would have been significantly more difficult. I finished my espresso. "You did well tonight." The honesty was risky, but it paid off. I can't lie to someone who survived 4 decades in organized crime. She'd see through it immediately. Most people try anyway. You didn't. I studied her face. "You're adapting faster than I expected." "I've had practice. 18 months of being someone else teaches you to read rooms quickly." She stood, moved to the window. "Kieran, what did your grandmother mean about the contract becoming real?" "She's sentimental. She thinks proximity creates affection." "Does it?" The question hung between us. "I don't know," I admitted. "I've never tested it before." "We're testing it now?" Yes, we are. She turned to face me. What happens if she's right? If this becomes more than the contract? Then we renegotiate terms when the year is up. I moved closer. But that's a problem for month 12. Right now, we focus on making it through Friday. The wedding, I confirmed. Small ceremony, immediate family only. You'll wear white, I'll wear a suit. We'll say vows we don't mean yet. And then you become Sloane Hale. Harper, she corrected. My new identity is Harper. Legally, you'll be Hale. The marriage certificate will say Sloane Hale, nee Morrison. I paused. Is that going to be a problem? I don't know. Ask me after I've actually signed it. Fair enough. I checked my watch. Marco will take you back to the safe house. Wedding's at noon on Friday. Get some rest before then. Kieran. She caught my arm as I moved past. Thank you. For tonight. For, she gestured vaguely, making this as easy as it could be. It's going to get harder before it gets easier. I know, but tonight was okay. Yeah, I agreed. Tonight was okay. I left her with Marco, watched the car pull away, and tried to ignore the way my grandmother's words echoed in my head. Contract can become something real if you let it. I wasn't going to let it. This was business. I just had to keep remembering that. Sloane. Thursday night, I couldn't sleep. Tomorrow, I'd marry a man I barely knew. A man who'd listened to my most private thoughts without permission. Who'd tracked me through surveillance systems. Who'd offered me safety wrapped in obligation. A man who was, somehow, starting to feel less like a stranger. I thought about Sunday dinner. About the way Kieran had translated for his grandmother with infinite patience. The way he'd defended me when Vincent asked pointed questions. The way his hand had felt under mine when Lucia had joined them together. Warm, solid, real. My phone buzzed. Unknown. You're awake. Me. How do you know? Unknown. Your light's on. I can see it from the street. I went to the window. A car was parked across the street. Kieran's. Me. You're watching the house? Unknown. Making sure you're safe. Me. Marco's outside. I have a panic button. I'm fine. Unknown. I know. But I wanted to be sure. I stared at the car for a long moment. Then I grabbed my jacket and went downstairs. He was leaning against the driver's side door when I stepped outside, hands in his pockets, breath misting in the cold November air. You should be sleeping, he said. So should you. I don't sleep much. Neither do I, not lately. I crossed the street, stopped a few feet away. Why are you really here, Kieran? Making sure you don't run. I signed the contract. I took your money. I met your family. Where exactly would I run to? I don't know. But people do irrational things when they're afraid. His eyes caught the streetlight, reflecting silver. Are you afraid? Terrified, I admitted. Not of you, of everything. Of marrying someone I don't really know. Of becoming part of your world. Of the fact that in 12 months, when this is over, I might not remember who I was before. You'll remember. How do you know? Because you recorded 64 voice memos to make sure you wouldn't forget. He moved closer. You document yourself, Sloane. You leave evidence of your existence. That's not someone who loses herself easily. I lost myself when I went into witness protection. No, you became someone else temporarily. You adapted. But Sloane Morrison never disappeared. She just went underground. He was close enough now that I could see the exhaustion in his face, the shadows under his eyes. Tomorrow she comes back. Different name, different circumstances. But still her. Sloane Hale. Sloane Hale, he confirmed. My wife. The word sent that same strange shiver through me. Are you nervous? I asked. About tomorrow? Yes. Why? Because marriage is permanent, even when it's contractual. Because once we do this, there's no pretending it didn't happen. He paused. And because I'm about to stand in front of my family and vow to love, honor, and protect someone I've known for less than a week. Even knowing its performance, it feels significant. I finished. Yes, we stood in the cold street, two people about to legally bind themselves together for reasons that had nothing to do with love and everything to do with survival. "I should let you sleep," Kieran said finally. "Tomorrow's going to be long." "Will you stay? In the car, I mean, just until I fall asleep." Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or something softer. "Yes," he said, "I'll stay." I went back inside, climbed the stairs to my room. Through the window, I could see his car, still parked across the street. Watching, protecting, keeping his word. I got into bed, left the light on so he'd know I was there, and fell asleep thinking about vows I'd say tomorrow. Vows that were supposed to be lies, but were starting to feel uncomfortably close to truth. Chapter 5. The Vows. Sloan. The dress arrived at 8 a.m., delivered by a woman who introduced herself as Elena and spoke with the brisk efficiency of someone who dressed brides 1,000 times. "Mr. Hale selected it personally," she said, unzipping the garment bag. "If anything needs adjustment, I have my kit." The dress was simple, elegant. Cream silk, fitted bodice, flowing skirt that fell just past my knees. Cap sleeves, subtle beading along the neckline, nothing dramatic or overstated. It was perfect, which somehow made this more real. "Try it on," Elena instructed. "We have 4 hours." The dress fit like it had been made for my body. Elena made minor adjustments, taking in the waist slightly, hemming the skirt so it hit exactly at my knee, and stepped back to assess. "Beautiful," she said. "Mr. Hale has excellent taste. He's very thorough. He's particular. There's a difference." She began unpacking makeup, hair supplies. "He sent me your photo from last week. Said you prefer minimal makeup, hair down. Is that still accurate? He told you my preferences." "He sent a detailed brief, makeup style, hair texture, even your perfume preference." She held up a bottle. "Chanel No. 5, correct?" I stared at the bottle. I'd worn that perfume exactly once in the past 18 months, to a job interview that never happened because I'd had to run before the scheduled date. Kieran had noticed anyway. "Yes," I said quietly, "that's correct." By 11:30 I was ready. Hair in loose waves, minimal makeup that made me look like myself but better. The dress fit perfectly, cream heels that added 3 inches to my height. The perfume. A single spray on each wrist. Elena handed me a small bouquet, white roses, cream ribbons. One more thing, she produced a velvet box. From Mr. Hale. Inside was a necklace, simple platinum chain, single diamond pendant, elegant, understated, probably worth more than my car used to be. "He said it belonged to his mother," Elena said quietly. "She wore it at her wedding." My hands trembled as I lifted it from the box. This wasn't just a prop. This was family history. "I can't." "He wants you to have it, at least for today." Elena fastened it around my neck. The diamond settled just above my collarbone, catching the light. I looked at myself in the mirror. I looked like a bride. A real bride, not someone playing a role. The panic hit suddenly, stealing my breath. "I can't do this," I whispered. "I can't. This is insane. I'm marrying a stranger, a criminal, someone who's heard my most private thoughts without permission. I don't even." "Breathe," Elena said firmly. She gripped my shoulders, forcing me to meet her eyes in the mirror. "Breathe with me, in through your nose." I breathed. "Out through your mouth." I exhaled. "Good. Again." We breathed together until the panic receded to manageable levels. "Better?" Elena asked. "Slightly. Good enough." She released my shoulders. "Now listen, I've been doing this for 20 years. I've dressed hundreds of brides, and I can tell you, every single one of them panics. Every single one thinks they're making a mistake. You know what separates the ones who go through with it from the ones who don't?" "What?" "The ones who go through with it decide that whatever they're afraid of is less scary than the alternative." She adjusted my hair slightly. So ask yourself, what's the alternative here? Running, hiding, Marcus Layton's men finding me eventually, living in fear until fear became my entire existence. Or standing beside Kieran Hale and letting him be the thing people feared instead. The alternative is worse, I said. Then you put one foot in front of the other, and you say the words, and you deal with the consequences later. She checked her watch. Car's here. Time to go. Kieran. The courthouse in Cambridge was exactly as impersonal as I remembered from the legal proceedings I'd attended over the years. Marble floors, fluorescent lighting, the distinct smell of institutional cleaning supplies and bureaucratic indifference. We'd secured a private room for the ceremony. Small, windowless, with a desk and a few chairs and an American flag in the corner. Vincent stood beside me, straightening his tie. Last chance to back out. I'm not backing out. You look like you might vomit. I don't vomit. There's a first time for everything. He studied my face. You're actually nervous. I didn't think you got nervous. I don't. You're lying. Your tells are showing. I forced my hands to relax. Vincent was right. I was nervous. Which was irrational. This was a contractual agreement being formalized through legal channels. No different than any other business arrangement. Except it was different. Because in approximately 10 minutes, Sloane Morrison would become Sloane Hale, and I would be responsible for her safety, her well-being, her existence for the next 12 months minimum. The door opened. Maria entered first, carrying a folder of documents, then Nona, dressed in her standard black, leaning on Rosa's arm. Angelo and several cousins filed in, filling the small room. Then Sloane. She stepped through the doorway, and every thought in my head went silent. The dress. Simple, elegant, exactly what I'd envisioned when I described it to Elena. The hair, the makeup, the way she held herself despite obvious nerves. But it was the necklace that made my breath catch. My mother's necklace, the one I'd sent this morning on impulse. I'd thought she might refuse it, might see it as too personal for a contractual arrangement. She'd worn it anyway. Our eyes met across the room. She looked terrified and determined in equal measure. I crossed to her, offered my arm. She took it, fingers cold against my sleeve. You came, I said quietly. Did you think I wouldn't? I thought you might reconsider after this morning. I did reconsider, multiple times. Then I remembered the alternative. She glanced down at the necklace. Your mother's? Yes, it doesn't have to mean anything. It's beautiful. Thank you. The officiant cleared his throat. Shall we begin? We positioned ourselves in front of the desk. Sloane's hand found mine, gripped tight. The officiant was a clerk I'd worked with before on various legal matters, discreet, efficient, willing to ignore the unusual circumstances. We're gathered here today, he began, voice flat with practiced routine, to witness the legal union of Kieran Hale and Sloane Morrison. Morrison, her real name, for official records. Harper would come later, buried in identity documents, but the marriage certificate would bear the truth. Marriage is a legal contract between two consenting adults, the officiant continued. It comes with specific rights, obligations, and responsibilities under state and federal law. Do you both understand and accept these terms? Yes, I said. Yes, Sloane echoed. Kieran Hale, do you take Sloane Morrison to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death or legal dissolution do you part? The words were standard, meaningless, just legal language to formalize a contract. But standing there, Sloane's hand in mine, my family watching, I felt the weight of them anyway. I do, I said. Sloane Morrison, do you take Kieran Hale to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death or legal dissolution do you part? Sloane's fingers tightened on mine. I felt her pulse jumping under my thumb. I do, she said. Her voice was steady, certain. The rings? Vincent produced them. Simple platinum bands I'd selected yesterday. Nothing engraved, nothing sentimental, just metal and commitment. I took Sloane's left hand, slid the ring onto her fourth finger. It fit perfectly. Of course it did. I'd had her measurements from the dress. She took my ring with trembling fingers, managed to get it onto my hand without dropping it. By the power vested in me by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the officiant said, "I now pronounce you legally married. You may—" He paused, looking between us. "Do you want a kiss?" It wasn't required for legal marriage, but it was expected, traditional. I looked at Sloane. She looked back, question in her eyes. I leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. Our lips met, brief, chaste, the kind of kiss appropriate for a courthouse ceremony. But I felt her sharp intake of breath, felt the way her hand came up to rest against my chest, right over my heart. When we separated, her eyes were wide, startled. "Congratulations," the officiant said. "Sign here, here, and here." We signed, legal names, legal commitment, legal binding. Maria witnessed. Vincent signed as second witness. "Done." "Welcome to the family," Nona said in English, pulling Sloane into a surprising hug. "You are hale now. We protect our own." Sloane returned the hug awkwardly, clearly overwhelmed. Rosa produced champagne from somewhere. Glasses were distributed. Angelo proposed a toast. "To Kieran and Sloane," he said, grinning. "May your marriage be long, prosperous, and at least occasionally romantic." Everyone drank. I caught Sloane's eye. She looked shell-shocked. "You okay?" I asked quietly. "I'm married," she said. "To you. That's insane." "Yes. We barely know each other. We know each other better than most married couples. I've heard your unfiltered thoughts for hours. You've read a 30-page contract about my expectations. Most people go into marriage with less information. That doesn't make this less insane." "No," I agreed, "but insane doesn't mean wrong." Sloane. The reception was held at a restaurant Vincent owned in the North End. Private room, immediate family only, food that probably cost more per plate than I used to spend on groceries in a month. Wine flowed freely. People laughed, told stories, welcomed me into the family like this was a normal wedding. Like I was a normal bride. I sat beside Kieran at the head table, his hand occasionally finding mine under the table. Performance for anyone watching, but it felt real anyway. "You're doing well," he murmured during a lull in conversation. "I'm faking it." "Everyone's faking it. That's the secret to social interaction." He refilled my wine glass. "But you're faking it convincingly." "Years of practice." Angelo appeared with his phone. "Photo. For the family album." "We don't have a family album," Kieran said. "We do now. You're married. That requires documentation." He positioned us, directed Kieran to put his arm around me. Kieran complied, pulling me close. I leaned into him, felt the solid warmth of his body against mine. Angelo took several photos. Perfect, very convincing newlyweds. "We are newlyweds," I pointed out. "You know what I mean." He pocketed his phone, then leaned close. "For what it's worth, I think you're good for him. He's been alone too long. It's made him weird." "I'm right here," Kieran said. "I know. I'm telling your wife you're weird. She should know what she's gotten into." Angelo grinned and moved away. "He's right, you know," I said. "You are weird. I prefer particular. That's just another word for weird. It's a more elegant word for weird." His hand moved to the small of my back, a gesture that was becoming familiar. "Are you tired? We can leave whenever you want." "Where are we going?" "My house. Your house now, technically. I had your things moved from the safe house this morning." "So I stopped. "We're actually living together starting tonight." "Yes, that was the arrangement." "Right. The arrangement, the contract, the transaction." Except his hand on my back felt less like performance and more like possession, and the ring on my finger felt heavier than platinum should. "Okay," I said. "Let's go home." The townhouse in Beacon Hill was exactly what I'd expected. Elegant, expensive, intimidating. 4 stories of restored brick, black shutters, a private courtyard behind wrought iron gates. Inside, everything was clean lines and modern furniture, layered over historical architecture. Hardwood floors, crown molding, a fireplace that had probably been installed 2 centuries ago. "Your room is on the 3rd floor," Kieran said, leading me upstairs. "Mine's on the 4th. Guest room's on the 2nd. Kitchen, living room, office on the 1st. Basement has the gym and the security center." Security center? Surveillance, communications, server room, the infrastructure that keeps us safe. He opened a door on the 3rd floor. "This is yours." The room was beautiful. King-sized bed, antique dresser, windows overlooking the courtyard. My clothes from the safe house were already unpacked, hung in the closet. "Bathroom's through there. If you need anything, my room is directly above this one. Knock on the ceiling." Knock on the ceiling? Or call, or text, whatever works. He paused in the doorway. "The house has security cameras in common areas, living room, kitchen, hallways, not in bedrooms or bathrooms. Your privacy is yours." "Like you promised in the contract." "Yes, like I promised." He pulled out his phone, pulled up an app. "This controls the cameras. You can disable any of them if they make you uncomfortable. The code is 1847. "Why 1847? "Year this house was built." He handed me the phone. "Trust, but verify. That's how this works." I took the phone, watched him leave. Then I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the ring on my finger. Mrs. Kieran Hale. Sloane Hale. A name I'd wear for 12 months, maybe less, if I couldn't handle it. A name that was already starting to feel less foreign than it should. My phone buzzed. "Kieran, are you settling in okay?" Me. "Yes, the room is beautiful." Kieran. "Good. There's food in the kitchen if you're hungry. Or I can order something." Me. "I'm fine. Thank you." A pause. Kieran. "You did well today, at the ceremony, at dinner, meeting everyone." Me. "I faked it well." Kieran. "Same thing in this context." Me. "Is it though?" Another pause, longer this time. Kieran. "I don't know. Ask me in 12 months. I set the phone down and changed out of the wedding dress, hung it carefully in the closet. Kieran's mother's necklace I left on, unable to make myself take it off yet. Tomorrow, reality would set in. Tomorrow I'd wake up in a stranger's house as a stranger's wife and have to figure out how to live this lie convincingly. But tonight, I was just tired. I climbed into bed, left the bedside lamp on and tried to sleep. Around midnight, I heard footsteps above me, Kieran pacing his room, unable to sleep either. I picked up my phone. Me. "Are you okay?" Kieran. "Yes, just thinking." Me. "About?" Kieran. "About the fact that I'm married. That you're here, in my house, wearing my ring. That this is real now. Contract or not." Me. "Having second thoughts?" Kieran. "No, just adjusting to the reality." Me. "Me too." The footsteps stopped. Kieran. "Get some sleep, Sloane. Tomorrow we start figuring out how to actually be married." Me. "Any advice?" Kieran. "Don't overthink it. We're both good at adapting. We'll figure it out." Me. "You're very confident." Kieran. "I'm very realistic. We made an agreement. We'll honor it. Everything else is just details." Me. "You really believe that?" A long pause. Kieran. "I'm trying to. Good night, wife." Me. "Good night, husband." I set the phone down, touched the ring on my finger, and closed my eyes. Somewhere above me, Kieran's footsteps resumed. We were married now. For better or for worse. And I had no idea which it would be. Chapter 6. The First Morning. Kieran. I woke at 5:30 a.m. to the sound of someone moving around downstairs. For a moment, disoriented by sleep, I reached for the gun I kept in my nightstand. Then I remembered. Sloane, my wife, living in my house now. I pulled on jeans and a t-shirt and went downstairs. She was in the kitchen, standing at the counter in pajama pants and an oversized sweater, staring at the coffee maker like it had personally offended her. "It's a French press," I said from the doorway. She jumped, spun around. "Jesus, you scared me." "Sorry, force of habit." I moved to the counter, started preparing the coffee. Couldn't sleep. I slept, just not well. New bed, new house, new, she gestured vaguely. Everything. "That's normal. It'll get easier." I poured water into the press. "How do you take your coffee?" "Black, no sugar." "I know, I was being polite." I pulled out 2 mugs. "You said it in voice memo 17. Complained that the safe house only had cream because the marshals didn't understand that coffee should be consumed in its pure form." She was quiet for a moment. "Then, do you remember all of them? All 64 recordings?" "Most of them. I have a good memory for patterns. And you," I poured the coffee. "You have very distinct patterns." "That's unsettling." "Yes, but also useful. I know when you're anxious, when you're deflecting, when you're actually comfortable versus performing comfort." I handed her a mug. "It makes living together easier." "Or more invasive?" "Both." I leaned against the counter. "We should establish a routine. Morning schedule, evening schedule, how we handle meals and shared spaces." "You want to schedule our marriage?" "I want to create structures so we're not constantly navigating logistics." I sipped my coffee. "I work from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. most days, sometimes later depending on family business. I usually eat breakfast at 6:30, lunch at my desk, dinner around 8. You're welcome to join me for any of those or maintain your own schedule. What if I want to leave the house, go somewhere? Marco or one of the other drivers takes you, for your safety. So I'm a prisoner. You're protected. There's a difference." I set down my mug. "Sloan, Marcus Layton's people are still looking for you. Until we neutralize that threat completely, you can't be unguarded." "How long will that take?" "I don't know. Weeks, maybe months. Depends on how persistent they are." I paused. "But you're not a prisoner. You can go anywhere you want. Shopping, museums, restaurants. You just can't go alone." She nodded slowly, processing. "What about work?" "I can't just do nothing for 12 months. "You don't have to. What do you want to do?" "I was a data analyst before everything. I'm good with numbers, patterns, systems." "Then work with Maria. She needs someone to help digitize our legal archives, cross-reference contracts, identify patterns in case law. It's legitimate work, pays well, keeps you occupied." "You already set this up." "I anticipated you'd want to work. Maria confirmed yesterday that she could use the help." I refilled my coffee. "It's not charity. You'd be earning your salary while working for your family's lawyer." "Who is now also your lawyer?" I met her eyes. "Everything I have, you have access to now. That includes professional connections." She was quiet, turning the mug in her hands. "This is strange," she said finally. "Being married to someone who's thought of everything." "I'm thorough." "You're controlling." "That too. I didn't deny it. But I'm also trying to make this work, for both of us." "Why do you care if it works for me? You just need me to play the role." "Because miserable people don't play roles convincingly. Because I don't enjoy watching people suffer when I can prevent it. Because I stopped." "Because what?" "Because I'd listened to her cry in the dark for hours. Because I knew what it sounded like when she was at breaking point. Because keeping her safe had become more than contractual obligation somewhere between voice memo 43 and the moment she'd signed her name on our marriage license. Because it's more efficient if we're both reasonably content with the arrangement," I said instead. She smiled slightly. "Everything's efficiency with you." "Yes, that's how I function." "Must be exhausting, calculating every interaction, every word, every gesture." "It's only exhausting when I don't know the variables. With you, I know the variables." I checked my watch. "I have a meeting at 7. Will you be okay here alone?" "I've been alone for 18 months. I think I can handle a few hours." "There's food in the refrigerator." The security system code is 1847 if you need to arm or disarm anything. Marco will be outside if you need to go anywhere. I moved toward the stairs. And Sloan? Yes? Welcome home, Sloan. The house felt different after Kieran left. Quieter, emptier, like the space itself was waiting for him to return before it could fully exist again. I explored while I had privacy. The first floor was all formal spaces. Living room with furniture that looked expensive and uncomfortable. Dining room with a table that could seat 12. Kieran's office with multiple monitors and equipment I didn't recognize. The second floor had 2 guest rooms and a library. Actual floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, filled with everything from technical manuals to classic literature. I ran my fingers along the spines, recognizing several titles I'd loved before my life fell apart. Someone had bookmarked Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, the screenplay, not the novel, my favorite movie, the one I'd mentioned in voice memo 52. Kieran had bought it. For me, presumably. Or maybe for himself, after hearing me talk about it. The thought made something warm and uncomfortable bloom in my chest. I found my phone and texted Maria. Me. Kieran mentioned you might need help with legal archives? Maria. Yes. When can you start? Me. Whenever you need me. Maria. Monday. My office. 9 a.m. I'll send you the address. Me. Thank you. Maria. Don't thank me yet. It's real work. I'll expect real results. Me. Good. I'm tired of being useless. Maria. You were never useless. You were surviving. Now you can do more than survive. I set the phone down, feeling something like hope. By noon, I was restless. The house was beautiful, but sterile. I needed to move. To do something. To prove I still existed outside of Kieran's carefully controlled environment. I found Marco outside, reading a newspaper in a black sedan. He looked up when I approached. Mrs. Hale, do you need something? Mrs. Hale. The name still felt foreign. I want to go out, shopping maybe, or just walking. Where would you like to go? I don't know, somewhere normal. Not expensive or exclusive, just normal, he considered. There's a bookstore in Cambridge. Small, independent. Mr. Hale mentioned you like books. Of course he did. That sounds perfect. The bookstore was exactly what I needed. Cramped aisles, musty smell of old paper, staff who didn't care who I was or why I was there. Marco stayed near the entrance, trying to look casual and failing, but he kept enough distance that I could pretend to be alone. I wandered through fiction, picked up books at random, read first pages and put them back. No pressure, no agenda. Just existing in a space that had nothing to do with Kieran or the contract or my complicated new life. I was examining a collection of short stories when my phone buzzed. Kieran, Marco says you're at a bookstore. Me. Is that a problem? Kieran, no. Buy whatever you want. There's a credit card in your wallet, no limit. Me. I have my own money now. Kieran, I know, but use the card anyway. It's safer than carrying cash. Me. You just want to track my purchases. Kieran, that too, but mostly I want you to buy books. The library at home needs more fiction. Me. Home. Kieran. Yes, home, where you live. With me. I stared at the message, at that casual use of the word that shouldn't mean anything but somehow did. Me. This is strange. Kieran. What is? Me. You. Texting me about books. Being normal. Kieran. I'm occasionally normal. It's rare, but it happens. Me. Don't get too normal. It's confusing. Kieran noted. I'll try to maintain appropriate levels of weirdness. Despite everything, I smiled. I bought 6 books, 3 literary fiction, 2 mysteries, 1 poetry collection. Used the credit card Kieran had mentioned. Felt strange and slightly guilty spending someone else's money, even though technically it was our money now. Community property. That's what marriage meant legally. Everything he had, I had access to. The thought was dizzying. Kieran, the meeting with the Calabrese family's advance team was exactly as tedious as I'd anticipated. 3 hours of discussing logistics for the dinner in 10 days. Seating arrangements, security protocols, appropriate topics of conversation. They wanted assurance that my marriage was legitimate, that Sloane would present well, that there would be no complications. Your wife, Matteo Calabrese said, studying me across the conference table. She understands what's expected? Yes. She's comfortable in formal settings? She's adaptable. She'll handle it. Because if there's any indication of... He paused, choosing his words carefully. Instability. If she seems nervous or unprepared or like this marriage is anything other than genuine... She'll be perfect, I interrupted. I don't make promises I can't keep. He studied me for another moment, then nodded. Good. My father is traditional. He believes marriage is sacred. If he suspects this is a business arrangement, it's not his business what our marriage is. It's ours. I kept my voice level, controlled, but he'll see a devoted couple. That's what matters. For your sake, I hope so. Matteo stood. 10 days, Kieran. Make sure she's ready. After they left, Vincent pulled me aside. You're defensive about her, he observed. I'm protective. There's a difference. Is there? He lit a cigarette, despite the building's no-smoking policy. You married her for the alliance. Don't forget that. I haven't forgotten. You sure? Because the way you just spoke about her, he exhaled smoke. That wasn't strategy. That was personal. Everything's personal when someone questions my judgment. I'm not questioning your judgment. I'm questioning your attachment. He met my eyes. Don't get complicated, Kieran. This works because it's simple. You protect her, she plays the role, everybody wins. Start actually caring, and it falls apart. I'm not actually caring. I'm ensuring my investment pays off. If you say so, he didn't sound convinced. Just remember, 12 months, then she leaves. Don't make it harder than it has to be. I left the office and went straight home, Vincent's words echoing in my head. Don't get complicated. Too late for that. I'd been complicated since I'd listened to Voice Memo 1 and heard Sloane's voice for the first time. Sloane was in the library when I got home, surrounded by the books she'd bought, reading with complete focus. She looked up when I entered. Hi. Hi. I loosened my tie. How was your afternoon? Good. Normal. I bought books. I saw the credit card notification. I sat in the chair across from her. 6 books in 3 hours. Impressive shopping efficiency. I have a system. Read first page, first paragraph of each chapter, last page. If all 3 work, I buy it. That's methodical. I learned from the best. She closed the book she was reading. How was your meeting? Tedious. The Calabrese family wants assurance that you're prepared for dinner next week. Am I? You will be. We'll practice this week. Conversation topics, appropriate responses, how to deflect questions you can't answer. You're going to train me. I'm going to prepare you. There's a difference. She smiled. Everything has a difference with you. Precision matters. I stood. I'm making dinner. Pasta, probably. You're welcome to join me. You cook? I feed myself. Whether that qualifies as cooking is debatable. I moved toward the kitchen. But it's edible. She followed me downstairs, settled on a stool at the kitchen island while I pulled out ingredients. Can I help? She asked. Can you cook? Adequately. Nothing fancy, but I won't burn the house down. Then you can handle the sauce while I do the pasta. I handed her a pan. Garlic, tomatoes, basil. Simple. We worked in comfortable silence, moving around each other with surprising ease. She chopped garlic with competent efficiency. I boiled water, measured pasta, monitored timing. This is strange, she said after a while. What is? This. Us. Cooking dinner together like we're actually married, instead of contractually obligated. We are actually married. The contract just defines the terms. You know what I mean. She added garlic to the pan, the sizzle filling the kitchen. It feels domestic. Is that bad? I don't know. It's just not what I expected. What did you expect? Separate lives that occasionally intersected, polite strangers sharing space. She stirred the sauce. Not this. This? Comfort, routine, conversation over cooking. She looked at me. It feels too easy. Maybe easy is what we both need after months of difficult. Maybe. She turned back to the stove. Or maybe we're both just good at pretending. We ate at the kitchen island, pasta and sauce and wine that Vincent had sent over as a wedding gift. Tell me something true, Sloane said halfway through the meal. About what? About you. Something that's not in a database or a file or strategy. Something real. I considered deflecting, then decided against it. I hate sleeping, I said, have since my father died. Every time I close my eyes, I see him in that chair, blood on the carpet, the look on Vincent's face when he found him. So I don't sleep much. 2-3 hours a night. Sometimes less. That's why you were outside the safe house. You weren't just watching me, you couldn't sleep. Yes. What do you do when you can't sleep? Work, read, listen to... I stopped. Listen to what? Voice memos. Recordings people make when they think no one's listening. I met her eyes. Yours weren't the first I'd listened to, but they were the first that made me feel less alone. She was quiet for a long moment. That's the most honest thing you've ever said to me, she said finally. I know. Thank you. For what? For telling me something true, for letting me see, she gestured vaguely, past the strategy to the person underneath. Don't get used to it. I'm not good at vulnerability. Neither am I, but maybe we can practice, together. Maybe, I agreed. After dinner, she helped me clean up, and we fell into an easy rhythm. Her washing, me drying, both of us existing in the same space without it feeling forced. I should go to bed, she said around 10. Early start Monday with Maria. Right, work. I hung up the dish towel. Sloane? Yes? This, I gestured between us. Whatever this is becoming, it's not in the contract. I know. Does that bother you? Does it bother you? She countered. I don't know yet. Ask me in 12 months. She smiled. You keep saying that. Because I keep meaning it. I moved toward the stairs. Good night, Sloane. Good night, Kieran. I climbed to my room, listened to her door close below me, and tried to convince myself that Vincent was wrong. I wasn't getting complicated. I was just being thorough, making sure the arrangement worked, protecting my investment. But lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I knew the truth. I was already complicated. And I had no idea how to stop. Chapter 7, The Performance. Sloane. The Calabrese dinner was in 6 days, and Kieran was turning our marriage into a military operation. They'll ask how we met, he said, pacing the living room while I sat on the couch with a notebook. We say the wedding, you were working, I was a guest, keep it simple. I remember, we've been over this. We'll go over it again. Details matter. If you hesitate, if you contradict something I've said, they'll notice. He stopped pacing. They'll ask about the engagement, how I proposed. You didn't propose. We signed a contract. They don't know that, so we need a story. He sat across from me. I propose we say it was private, intimate, no grand gesture, just us. Because that's believable for someone like you. What's that supposed to mean? You're not exactly the romantic type, Kieran. If we say you proposed with candles and roses, they'll smell the lie. Point taken. He leaned back. So we say what, that I asked you matter-of-factly and you said yes? That's closer to the truth, at least. I made a note. What about physical affection? They'll expect us to be comfortable touching each other. We practice. He stood, extended his hand. Come here. I took his hand, let him pull me to my feet. Put your arm around my waist, he instructed. I did. He felt solid, warm, real. His arm settled around my shoulders, pulling me close. Like this, natural, comfortable, not stiff. I am comfortable. You're tense. Your shoulders are up. He used his free hand to gently press my shoulder down. Relax. We're supposed to be in love, remember? We're supposed to be married. Love wasn't in the contract. The Calabrese family is traditional. They'll expect love. Or at least convincing affection. His hand moved to my face, tilted my chin up. Look at me like you don't hate me. I don't hate you. Then look at me like you. He stopped. Like I what? Like you want to be here. With me. I met his eyes, saw the calculation there, the way he was analyzing my micro-expressions. Stop reading me, I said quietly. I can't help it. It's automatic. Try. I reached up, touched his jaw. Just try to be here. Not analyzing, not strategizing, just here. Something shifted in his expression. The calculation faded, replaced by something raw. Like this? He asked, voice lower. Yes, like that. We stood there, wrapped around each other, the performance bleeding into something that felt uncomfortably real. They'll want to see us kiss, he said finally. Not like at the courthouse. Something more. Convincing? Yes. Should we practice that too? Do you want to? I should have said no. Should have maintained boundaries, kept this professional. Instead, I said yes. He leaned in slowly, giving me time to change my mind. I didn't. Our lips met, and this wasn't the brief courthouse kiss. This was deeper. Slower, his hands sliding into my hair, my fingers gripping his shirt. This was what people who were actually married kissed like. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. That was, I started. Convincing, he finished. Very. Good. He stepped back, creating distance. We should practice more this week. Make sure it looks natural. Right, practice. I moved toward the stairs, needing space. I need to work on the archives Maria sent over. Sloan. I stopped, turned back. We're just practicing, he said. For the performance, that's all. I know. Good. Because if we start confusing performance with reality... We won't, I interrupted. I'm very clear on what this is. So am I. We were both lying. Kieran. The kiss had been a mistake. Not because it wasn't convincing. It was perfectly convincing. Too convincing. Because now I couldn't stop thinking about it. About the way Sloan had responded. The small sound she'd made when I deepened the kiss. The way her fingers had tightened in my shirt like she didn't want to let go. I sat in my office at 2 a.m., staring at security footage that didn't need reviewing, trying to convince myself that the kiss had been purely strategic. It hadn't worked. My phone buzzed. Vincent, stop obsessing and go to sleep. Me, I'm working. Vincent, you're spiraling. I can tell from here. Me, I don't spiral. Vincent, you absolutely spiral. You just do it quietly, with spreadsheets and surveillance footage. Me, what do you want, Vincent? Vincent, to remind you that the Calabrese dinner is in 6 days. You need to be sharp, not distracted by your wife. Me, I'm not distracted. Vincent, you kissed her today, Marco told me. Me, we were practicing, for the performance. Vincent, right, practice. Is that what we're calling it now? Me, it was strategic preparation for a high-stakes social interaction. Vincent, it was you making this more complicated than it needs to be. Stop it. Me, noted. Vincent, I'm serious, Kieran. Don't fall for your own con. She's leaving in 12 months. Remember that. He hung up before I could respond. I pulled up the house cameras. Living room, kitchen, hallways. Sloane's light was still on in her room, still awake at 2 a.m., same as me. I disabled the hallway camera and went downstairs. Knocked on her door quietly. Come in, she called. She was sitting on her bed, laptop open, surrounded by legal documents, working on the archives Maria had assigned. Couldn't sleep? I asked from the doorway. Too much work. Maria sent over 50 contracts to cross-reference. She looked up. Why are you awake? Same as always. Can't turn my brain off. Because of the dinner? Because of everything. I leaned against the doorframe. Can I come in? She hesitated, then nodded. I sat in the chair by her window, maintaining distance. Vincent called, I said, reminded me not to get complicated. Is that what we're doing, getting complicated? I don't know, maybe. I looked at her. That kiss today, that wasn't entirely strategic. I know. Does that bother you? Should it? Probably. We agreed this was a transaction. Adding emotional complications makes it messier. Everything in my life is already messy, Kieran. One more complication won't make much difference. She closed her laptop. Can I ask you something? Always. Why did you really choose me? And don't say it's because I was desperate and available. There are thousands of desperate available women in Boston. Why specifically me? I was quiet for a long moment, because when I listened to your voice memos, I said, finally, I heard someone who understood loneliness the way I do. Someone who'd built walls to survive but wanted them torn down. Someone who was tired of performing and just wanted to be real with someone. And you thought you could be that someone? I thought maybe we could be that for each other. I stood, moved to leave. But Vincent's right. I'm making this complicated. I should. Stay, she said. I stopped. Stay, she repeated. Just talk to me. Like we did over dinner the other night. No strategy, no performance, just us. I should have left, should have maintained boundaries. Instead, I sat back down. What do you want to talk about? I asked. Anything, everything. Tell me about your father, about why you don't sleep, about what you're actually afraid of. That's a lot of questions. We have time. So I told her. About finding my father dead when I was 24, blood still warm, the chair we'd sat in 1,000 times for family dinners turned into a crime scene. About Vincent's breakdown. About becoming the person who held the family together through sheer force of will and technological superiority. About the nightmares that followed. About the way I'd stopped trusting sleep because every time I closed my eyes, I saw my father's vacant stare. About the loneliness that came from being the smart one, the strategic one, the one everyone relied on but no one actually knew. I built systems, I said. Security, surveillance, protocols. Because systems don't bleed. Systems don't die in chairs. Systems are controllable. But people aren't, Sloane said quietly. No, people aren't. Is that why you've been alone? Because people are uncontrollable? Yes. And because caring about people makes you vulnerable. Gives people leverage against you. I met her eyes. My father died because he trusted the wrong person. Let someone get close who shouldn't have been close. I decided I wouldn't make that mistake. And then you married me. And then I married you. I agreed. Am I a mistake, Kieran? I don't know yet, I stood. Ask me in 12 months. You keep saying that. Because I keep not knowing the answer. I moved toward the door. Get some sleep, Sloane. The Calabrese dinner is going to be exhausting. Kieran. I turned back. Thank you, she said, for telling me something true. You're welcome. Your turn tomorrow night. My turn? You tell me something true. We trade. That's how trust works, apparently. She smiled. Apparently. I went back upstairs, climbed into bed, and stared at the ceiling. Vincent was right. I was making this complicated. But I didn't know how to stop, Sloane. The next 5 days were a blur of preparation. Maria drilled me on legal terminology, appropriate responses to questions about Kieran's business, vague but supportive, how to deflect curiosity about our relationship, smile and change subject. Kieran practiced physical affection until it became second nature, his hand at my back, my head on his shoulder, casual touches that looked effortless. We practiced conversations, coordinated our stories, made sure every detail aligned. And every night, one of us would knock on the other's door, and we'd sit in the dark and trade truths. I told him about my mother leaving, about finding her goodbye note on the kitchen table when I was 12, about my father's slow deterioration into obsessive work, using the gallery to avoid the grief, about testifying against Marcus Layton not just because it was right, but because I was angry. At him, at my father for dying and leaving me with his debts, at myself for being naive enough to trust either of them. I wanted to burn it all down, I admit it. The gallery, Leighton's empire, all of it, so I did. Scorched earth, Kieran said. I respect that. It destroyed my life. But you survived. That's more important. Did I? Or did I just run until I couldn't run anymore? Both. But now you're here, rebuilding. That counts for something. On the 5th night, I asked him what he was most afraid of. Losing control, he said without hesitation. Of a situation, of information, of... He stopped. Of what? Of you, he admitted. Of this. Of the fact that I'm supposed to be strategically managing this arrangement, and instead, I'm... Getting complicated? Yes. Is that really so terrible? It is if it means I can't protect you properly, if it means I make decisions based on what I want instead of what's safe. What do you want? I asked quietly. He looked at me for a long moment. I want this to be real, he said finally. I want to stop pretending. I want to kiss you without calling it practice. I want... He stopped, jaw tight. I want things that aren't in the contract. My heart hammered against my ribs. The contract can be amended, I said. Can it? Yes, if both parties agree. I moved closer. Do you want to amend it? I don't know. Do you? Instead of answering, I kissed him. Not for practice, not for performance. Just because I wanted to. He responded immediately, pulling me close, kissing me like he'd been holding back for weeks, and finally snapped. Maybe we both had. When we broke apart, we were tangled together on my bed, breathing hard. We should stop, he said. We should, I agreed. Neither of us moved. The Calabrese dinner is tomorrow, he continued. We need to be focused. Very focused. This is the opposite of focused. I know. He kissed me again, and all thoughts of focus evaporated. Kieran. I left Sloane's room at 4 a.m., went upstairs, and immediately called Vincent. This better be an emergency, he answered, voice rough with sleep. I slept with her. Silence. Then, Jesus Christ, Kieran. Not like that. We kissed. Extensively, and I stayed. And we got complicated. Vincent finished. I fucking told you not to do this. I know. The Calabrese dinner is tonight. You need to be sharp, focused, strategically managing this performance. Instead, you're, falling for your contractual wife? I don't know what I'm doing. That's the problem. You always know what you're doing. That's your thing. Strategy, control, planning. He exhaled sharply. Does she feel the same way? I think so, maybe. I don't know. Have you asked her? No. Why not? Because if she says yes, then this becomes real. And real means vulnerable. And vulnerable means you might actually be happy for once in your miserable life, Vincent interrupted. Would that really be so terrible? Yes, because happiness is temporary, and when it ends, it destroys you. I know. You've been living like that since Dad died. Vincent's voice softened. But Kieran, you can't keep everyone at arm's length forever. Eventually, you have to risk something. I'm risking everything by keeping her safe. Isn't that enough? No, because keeping her safe is duty, letting her in is choice. He paused. The Calabrese dinner. Can you still pull it off? Can you perform? Yes. You sure? I'm sure. Performance is what I do. Then perform tonight. Be brilliant. Make them believe you're madly in love with your wife. He paused. And maybe while you're performing, figure out how much of it is actually performance. He hung up. I sat in my room as dawn broke over Boston and tried to separate strategy from reality. Failed completely. Because the truth was, I had no idea where the performance ended and the real feelings began. And in 8 hours, I had to convince the Calabrese family that my marriage was genuine, when I wasn't even sure myself anymore. Chapter 8. The Unraveling. Sloane. The dress Kieran had selected for the Calabrese dinner was stunning. Deep emerald silk, fitted through the bodice, flowing elegantly to my ankles. off-shoulder sleeves, a neckline that was daring without being inappropriate. I stood in my bedroom, staring at my reflection, and barely recognized myself. I looked like someone who belonged in Kieran's world. Someone who could stand beside him convincingly. Someone who wasn't pretending. Elena arrived at 5 to do hair and makeup. Sleek updo, smoky eyes, red lips that made me look dangerous and elegant simultaneously. "Mr. Hale has excellent taste," she said, stepping back to assess. "You look stunning. I look like someone else. You look like Mrs. Hale. There's a difference." She handed me the diamond earrings Kieran had sent up earlier. "He's waiting downstairs." I descended the stairs carefully, the dress whispering against my legs, heart hammering. Kieran stood in the foyer, adjusting his cufflinks. Black tuxedo, white shirt, bow tie. He looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine, polished, powerful, completely in control. Then he turned and saw me. His expression cracked. Just for a second, just long enough for me to see genuine reaction before the control slammed back into place. "You're beautiful," he said quietly. "You clean up well yourself. We should go. The car's waiting." But he didn't move. Just stood there, looking at me like he was memorizing details. "Sloane, whatever happens tonight, we'll be fine. We've practiced." That's not what I meant. He moved closer. "Last night, this morning, the past week, none of that was practice." "I know. And tonight, when we're performing for the Calabrese family." "I'll know the difference," I interrupted, "between performance and real, I promise." "Will you?" His hand came up to my face, thumb brushing my cheekbone. "Because I'm not sure I will anymore." Before I could respond, Marco appeared in the doorway. "Boss, we need to leave. Traffic." Kieran stepped back, offered his arm. "Ready?" "As I'll ever be." The Calabrese estate was in the suburbs, a sprawling Mediterranean-style villa that screamed old money and older power. Guards at the gates, cameras everywhere, the kind of security that made Kieran's setup look casual. "Remember," Kieran said as we drove through the entrance, "you're nervous about meeting important family friends. That's normal for a new wife. Use it. Let them see you're human." "I am nervous." "I know. That's why it'll be convincing." His hand found mine, squeezed. "You're going to be perfect." "How do you know?" "Because you've survived worse than a dinner party. This is just theater." The car stopped. A valet opened my door. Kieran was beside me immediately, his hand settling at the small of my back. The touch was familiar now, comforting. "Together," he murmured. "Together," I agreed. We walked into the house. Kieran. Matteo Calabrese greeted us in the grand foyer. Marble floors, crystal chandelier, enough wealth on display to fund a small country. "Kieran, welcome." He extended his hand, then turned to Sloane. "And this must be your bride, Matteo Calabrese. Pleasure to meet you." "Sloane Hale," she said, her smile perfect. "Thank you for inviting us." "Of course. My father is eager to meet you both." He gestured toward the living room. "Please, join us." The living room was full of people. Calabrese family members, business associates, all dressed impeccably, all watching us with varying degrees of curiosity and assessment. And in the center, seated in a wingback chair like a throne, was Salvatore Calabrese. 83 years old, white hair, sharp eyes that had seen 6 decades of organized crime and survived it all. The man who controlled shipping routes from Italy to New England, who could make or break our European expansion with a single word. "Mr. Hale," he said, voice heavily accented, "approach, bring your wife." We crossed the room. Every eye followed us. Sloane's hand tightened almost imperceptibly on my arm. I covered it with mine, squeezed back. "Mr. Calabrese," I said, "it's an honor. This is my wife, Sloane." Salvatore studied her with the intensity of a man who'd built an empire on reading people. "Sloane," he repeated. "Unusual name." "Irish?" "Yes, sir. My grandmother's choice." And you married my friend Kieran. Why? The directness caught her off guard. I felt her tense. Because I fell in love with him, she said simply. Love? Salvatore smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Young people always say love. Like it explains everything. Doesn't it? Sloane asked. No, love is easy. Commitment is hard. Partnership is harder. He gestured to a chair. Sit, both of you. Tell me how you met. We sat. I kept my hand on Sloane's, thumb brushing her knuckles, the gesture we'd practiced, now automatic. A wedding, I said. 6 months ago. Sloane was working the event. I was a guest. We talked. And I couldn't stop thinking about her, I continued, the lie flowing smoothly because it was partially true. I found excuses to see her again. Hired her company for other events, made sure I was there. Persistent, Salvatore observed. When I know what I want, I don't hesitate. I looked at Sloane. She was what I wanted. She smiled, the performance perfect. He was persistent, annoyingly so, but also, she paused, and I saw real emotion flicker across her face. He saw me, really saw me, not just the role I was playing, the person underneath. That wasn't in our practice script. That was truth. And when did you know you wanted to marry her? Salvatore asked me. The first time she challenged me, I said. Most people are afraid of me. Or they want something from me. She did neither. She just existed. Honestly, it was refreshing. Honest people are dangerous, Salvatore said. They don't play games. That's why I married her, I replied. I have enough games in my life. I wanted someone real. Salvatore studied us both for a long moment. Then he smiled, genuinely this time. You'll do, he said. Matteo, show them to their seats. Dinner will be served shortly. Dinner was 12 courses of Italian cuisine, each more elaborate than the last. Sloane sat beside me, navigating conversation with surprising skill. She listened more than she spoke, asked thoughtful questions, deflected personal inquiries with grace. I watched her charm Salvatore's wife, laugh at Matteo's jokes, hold her own against questions designed to expose weakness. She was magnificent. Halfway through the 7th course, Salvatore raised his glass. A toast, he announced, to Kieran and Sloane. May your marriage be long, prosperous, and filled with many children. Everyone drank. Sloane's hand found mine under the table, squeezed hard. Children. We hadn't discussed that. The contract said nothing about children. Thank you, I said smoothly. We're looking forward to building our family. After dinner, the women retired to the sitting room while the men moved to Salvatore's study for cigars and business. I hated separating from Sloane. Hated sending her into that room alone. But she gave me a small nod. I've got this, and followed the other women. Sloane. The women's sitting room was elegant and terrifying. 8 women, all beautifully dressed, all watching me with calculating eyes, evaluating, judging. Salvatore's wife, Isabella, poured tea. Sit, dear, we have questions. I sat, arranging my dress carefully. You married very quickly. One of the younger women, Matteo's wife, I thought, said, only 6 months from meeting to marriage. When you know, I replied. But how did you know? Isabella pressed. Kieran Hale is not an easy man. Brilliant, yes. Powerful, certainly. But difficult, cold. He's not cold, I said. He's careful. There's a difference. Careful men don't fall in love in 6 months. Maybe he wasn't being careful with me. I met her gaze. Maybe he decided I was worth the risk. Or maybe, another woman said, voice sharp, you saw an opportunity. A wealthy man, powerful family, easy life. The accusation hung in the air. I could deflect, smile, and change the subject like Maria had taught me. Instead, I told the truth. You're right, I said. I did see an opportunity. I was desperate, alone, afraid. Kieran offered me safety, protection, a life where I didn't have to run anymore. I paused. But that's not why I married him. Then why? Isabella asked. Because somewhere between the opportunity and the safety, I fell in love with the man who offered them, the one who listens when I can't sleep, who remembers my coffee order, who looks at me like I'm the most interesting problem he's ever tried to solve. I smiled slightly. He's difficult and calculating, and sometimes terrifying. But he's also kind in ways he doesn't want anyone to notice. And loyal to the point of obsession. And my voice caught. And he makes me feel less alone than I've felt in years. Silence. Then Isabella smiled. Good answer, she said. Welcome to the family, Sloane. Kieran. The business discussion in Salvatore's study was straightforward. Shipping routes, percentages, security protocols. I negotiated from a position of strength. The marriage had convinced them I was stable, committed, worthy of partnership. Your wife is impressive, Salvatore said, lighting a cigar. Smart, honest, stronger than she looks. Yes. You love her. It wasn't a question. Yes, I said anyway. Good. Love makes men careful, makes them think beyond themselves. He exhaled smoke. But love also makes men vulnerable, gives enemies leverage. I'm aware of the risks. Are you? Because from where I sit, you've just handed anyone who wants to hurt you the perfect weapon. He leaned forward. Protect her, Kieran. Because if something happens to that girl, you'll burn the world down, and I need you stable, not vengeful. Nothing will happen to her. For your sake, I hope that's true. We rejoined the women an hour later. Sloane stood when she saw me, crossed the room with a smile that looked genuine. How was business? She asked. Productive. You? Survived the interrogation. She leaned close, whispered, They like me. I think we did it. Relief flooded through me. You did it. You were perfect. We were perfect, she corrected. We said our goodbyes, made promises to host the Calabrese family soon, accepted congratulations and well wishes. Finally, we were in the car, driving away from the estate, the performance complete. Sloane sagged against the seat. Oh my God, that was exhausting. You were magnificent. I was terrified. Didn't show, I took her hand. What did they ask you? Everything. How we met, why we married so quickly, if I was using you for money. She laughed, shakily. I told them the truth. Sort of. What truth? That I married you for safety, but fell in love with you anyway. The words hung in the air. Sloane. I know. Contract. Transaction. 12 months. She looked at me. But it's true, Kieran. Somewhere in the past 3 weeks, I stopped pretending. And I don't know when it happened, but it did. My heart hammered. You're in love with me. Yes, unfortunately, she smiled, sadly. I know that complicates things. I know it's not what we agreed to, but I thought you should know. Why? Because you spent 64 voice memos listening to me confess things I'd never say to anyone. Because you deserve honesty from me the same way I got it from you. She pulled her hand away. You don't have to say anything. I'm not asking you to feel the same way. I just needed you to know. We drove in silence for several minutes. Then I told the driver to pull over. What? Sloane started. I kissed her. Not for performance. Not for practice. Because I'd been lying to myself for 3 weeks, and I was done lying. When we broke apart, I pressed my forehead to hers. I'm in love with you too, I said. I have been since, I don't know, since the voice memos maybe. Or since you negotiated the contract. Or since you told Nona the truth. But somewhere along the way, this stopped being strategy and started being real. What do we do about it? She whispered. I don't know, but we figure it out. Together. The contract. Fuck the contract. We'll amend it. Renegotiate. Burn it if we have to. I kissed her again. I want this to be real, Sloane. Not for the Calabrese family. Not for the alliance. For us. That's terrifying. I know, but I'm done being afraid. I pulled her close. Are you? She kissed me instead of answering. The driver cleared his throat. Boss, We should probably get moving. We're blocking traffic. Right. I released Sloane reluctantly. Home? Home, she agreed. And for the first time since I'd proposed this arrangement, the word felt completely true. Epilogue, 6 months later. Sloane. I woke to sunlight streaming through windows I'd stopped thinking of as just Kieran's months ago. Our bedroom. Our house. Our life. Kieran was already awake, sitting against the headboard with his laptop, typing with the focused intensity that meant he was solving some digital crisis before most of the city had their first coffee. I had learned his patterns, the way he woke at 5:30 no matter what, the furrow between his eyebrows when code wasn't cooperating, the slight smile when he solved a problem no one else could. You're staring, he said without looking up. You're shirtless. It's distracting. That's never stopped you from working before. I'm not working, I'm appreciating. He closed the laptop, set it aside. Appreciating? My husband, who is exceptionally attractive when he's solving problems at 6 a.m. Your husband, he repeated, like he was still getting used to the concept. Not your contractual obligation. Not anymore. I moved closer, curled into his side. We burned the contract, remember? We shredded it, then burned to pieces, then had the ashes scattered. His arm came around me automatically. I was being thorough. You're always thorough. 3 months ago, we'd sat across from Maria and asked her to dissolve the marital contract. She'd looked between us, at the way Kieran held my hand, at the way I leaned into him without thinking and smiled. You don't need me for this, she'd said. You're not dissolving a contract. You're choosing to stay married without one. That's different. We want it in writing, Kieran had insisted. New terms. No exit clause. No financial settlement. No time limit. Just marriage. Romantic, Maria had said dryly, but effective. The new agreement had been simple. We choose this, every day, for as long as we both want it. No obligation. No transaction. Just us. What are you thinking about? Kieran asked now, his hand tracing patterns on my shoulder. About how 6 months ago I was terrified of you. And now? Now I'm terrified of how much I need you. I tilted my head up to look at him. Is that healthy? Probably not. But I'm terrified of the same thing, so at least we're equally dysfunctional. True love. The truest. He kissed my forehead. Are you ready for today? Today. The anniversary party Nona had insisted on throwing. 6 months of marriage. Apparently a significant milestone in Hale family tradition. Ready to be interrogated by your relatives about when we're having children? I already told them it's none of their business. That won't stop, Nona. Nothing stops Nona. But we can handle her. His hand moved to my face, thumb brushing my cheek. We can handle anything together. When did you become an optimist? When I married someone who makes me want to be. Kieran. The party was exactly as overwhelming as I'd predicted. Nona had invited everyone. Immediate family, extended family, business associates, half of Boston's Italian community. The house in the North End was packed with people drinking wine and arguing loudly in Italian about everything from politics to pasta sauce recipes. Sloane navigated it all with the same grace she'd shown at the Calabrese dinner, but now it was effortless. No performance, no practice. Just her, comfortable in my world because it had become her world too. Your wife is good for you, Vincent said, appearing at my elbow with a scotch. You smile now. It's unsettling. I smiled before. You performed smiling. Now you actually do it. He watched Sloane laughing with Rosa across the room. I was wrong, by the way, about not getting complicated. You were very vocal about not getting complicated. And you ignored me, as you should have. He took a drink. She makes you human again. That's worth any complication. Are you getting sentimental, Vincent? Don't tell anyone. I have a reputation to maintain. He clapped me on the shoulder. But seriously, don't fuck this up. She's the best thing that's happened to this family in decades. He walked away before I could respond. I found Sloane by the dessert table, sampling cannoli and trying to politely decline Rose's insistence that she eat more. "Rescue me," she mouthed. I pulled her away, Rose's protests following us. "Thank you," Sloane said. "I love your aunt, but she's determined to fatten me up. It's how she shows affection, food, and aggressive concern. It's working. I've gained 10 pounds since the wedding. You look perfect. You're biased." "Extremely." I led her toward the back door, away from the crowd. "Come with me. I want to show you something." We slipped into the garden, the noise of the party fading behind us. The garden was small, but beautiful. Rosa's domain, full of flowering vines and herbs, and the kind of careful cultivation that took years. "What did you want to show me?" Sloane asked. I pulled a small box from my pocket. Her eyes widened. "Kieran, it's not what you think. Open it." She did. Inside was a key. A key? To a gallery space in Soho, small but well located. Good light. I bought it last month. I took the key, placed it in her palm. "You said you missed curating, missed working with art. So, now you can. Your gallery, your vision. No debts, no pressure. Just you doing what you love." She stared at the key, then at me. "You bought me a gallery." "I bought us a gallery. I'm a silent partner. You run it however you want." I paused. "Unless you don't want to, then we'll figure out something else." She kissed me, hard and sudden. "I love you," she said against my lips. "You impossible, calculating, occasionally terrifying man. I love you so much." "Is that a yes to the gallery?" "It's a yes to everything. To you, to this, to whatever comes next. Even when I'm controlling and thorough and can't stop optimizing things?" "Especially then," she pulled back, smiled. "Someone has to keep you interesting. You do that just by existing." Smooth talker. I learned from the best. We stood in Rosa's garden, the sounds of my family celebrating inside, the city alive around us, and I thought about voice memo 64. I want to stop running. I want to stop being afraid. I want to exist again. She'd thrown that phone into the harbor thinking no one would ever hear it. But I had. And somehow, against all logic and strategy and careful planning, that desperate confession had led us here. To this moment. This life. This choice we kept making every single day. "What are you thinking about?" Sloane asked. "About how I found your phone in the harbor 6 months ago. About how I listened to you confess things you never meant anyone to hear. About how I tracked you down and proposed a marriage of convenience." And I'm thinking that was the best strategic decision I've ever made, even if it stopped being strategic 3 weeks in. When did you know? That it was becoming real? When you told Nona the truth, that we were using each other. You could have lied, played the game, but you didn't. You were honest because that's who you are. I pulled her closer. "I started falling in love with your voice, but I fell completely in love with your honesty. I started falling in love with the man who listened to my voice memos and decided I was worth saving," she said. "But I fell completely in love with the man who kept every promise, even the ones that cost him. We're very efficient at falling in love. We're very efficient at everything, except sleep, and eating regularly, and attending family functions without wanting to escape." She laughed. "We're a mess. We're the best kind of mess." Nana's voice called from the house. "Kieran, Sloane, come, time for cake." Sloane groaned. "More food. I can't." "We can hide in the garden." "Your grandmother will find us." "She always does." "Then we face her together." "Together," I agreed. We walked back toward the house, hands intertwined, ready to face an evening of aggressive Italian hospitality and questions about children we weren't ready to answer. But together it was manageable. Everything was manageable together. Sloane. Later that night, after the party had finally ended and we'd helped clean up and driven home to our quiet house, I found myself in Kieran's office. He was at his desk, going through security footage from the day, paranoid habit he couldn't break, making sure nothing had been compromised during the chaos. I sat on the edge of his desk. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you ever regret it? Finding my phone, listening to the voice memos, all of it?" He looked up from the monitors. "No, never. Why?" "Because if you hadn't, I'd probably be dead, or still running, or caught by Marcus Layton's people." I paused. "Your invasion of my privacy saved my life." "Does that make it okay, the invasion?" "I don't know, but I'm grateful anyway." I traced patterns on his desk. "Do you still have them, the recordings?" "Yes, encrypted, secure. I couldn't delete them." "Can I hear one?" He looked surprised. "Which one?" "The last one. The one I recorded before I threw the phone away." He pulled up his archive, found the file, hit play. My voice filled the office, raw and exhausted, and so desperately lonely it hurt to hear. "I want someone to know my real name. I want someone to see me. Really see me, not the fake identity, or the witness or the runner. I want to stop running. I want to stop being afraid. I want to exist again." Kieran stopped the playback. "You exist now," he said quietly. "You're not running, not afraid, not invisible. Because you heard me. Because you said it. I just happened to be listening. Lucky coincidence." I don't believe in coincidence. I believe in patterns, probabilities, and the occasional moment where everything aligns exactly right. He pulled me into his lap. "You threw your phone into the harbor at the exact moment my team was retrieving evidence. I listened to your voice at the exact moment I needed a wife. You needed protection at the exact moment I could provide it. Too many variables aligned for it to be random." "Are you saying we were fate?" "I'm saying we were inevitable. Once all the pieces were in place, there was no other outcome." That's very romantic, in a deterministic, slightly creepy way. I contain multitudes. I kissed him, tasting coffee and inevitability, and the future we'd chosen against all logic. "I love you," I said, "my voyeuristic, calculating, impossible husband. I love you too, my honest, fierce, occasionally reckless wife. Should we go to bed?" "We should." He didn't move. "But I want to show you something first." He pulled up another file, a new one, dated today. "What's this?" "Voice memo, mine." He hit play. His voice, recorded earlier, filled the office. "6 months ago, I found a phone in Boston Harbor. Inside were 64 recordings of a woman I'd never met, confessing fears and desires to no one. I listened because I was lonely. Because I recognized something in her voice. Because I was tired of being alone in rooms full of people. Today, that woman is my wife, not because of a contract, but because somewhere between strategy and performance, we became real. She makes me laugh, makes me sleep better, makes me want to be the person she thinks I am. I don't know if she'll ever hear this, but I'm recording it anyway, because she taught me that confessing things to the void makes you real, and I want to be real with her, always." The recording ended. I stared at him, tears streaming down my face. "You made a voice memo. For me. For us. I thought maybe we could start a new tradition. Recording things we want to remember. Not for anyone else, just for us. Like a diary. Like proof we existed. Together." I kissed him again, tasting salt and love, and the weight of being truly known by another person. "Okay," I whispered. "Let's record everything. Every moment. Every confession. Every truth. Even the ugly ones? Especially the ugly ones. That's what makes it real." He smiled. Genuine. Unguarded. The smile I'd worked weeks to earn and now saw every day. "Then let's be real," he said, "for the rest of our lives." Deal. We went upstairs together, to the bedroom that was ours, in a house that was ours, in the life we'd built from surveillance footage and desperate confessions, and a phone thrown into Boston Harbor on a cold November night. And if sometimes, late at night when we couldn't sleep, we recorded voice memos for each other, confessions of love and fear and hope and everything in between, well, that was nobody's business but ours. Because we'd learned that the truest things are often said when you think no one's listening. And the greatest gift is finding someone who hears you anyway. The end.